That would be fine by me after Wednesday, but
We don't pay shit.
let's figure it out.
Price your wife.
All right, calling this work session meeting on May 20th, 2024 to order. The time is 6:01 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Brusher.
Here.
Councilmember Coyle. Here. Councilmember Harris. Here. Councilmember Patel.
Here.
Councilmember Patil.
Here.
Councilmember Pointer.
Present.
Councilmember Shmuel.
Here.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the adequate notice.
Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Act of 1975 has been provided by the annual notice sent to the Home News Tribune, Star Ledger, Desi Talk, and News India Times on December 12th, 2023, and posted main lobby municipal complex on that same date.
Okay, so now we're on number 4, oral petition and remarks. Going from the list, I have first person Charlie Cratowell.
Good evening, Charlie Cratowell, New Brunswick
recognized.
today. Thank you. I wanted to ask about the budget that was introduced. Can anybody tell me the timeliness of it? Was it introduced later than the statute? And if so, how late?
No.
No?
No.
So it was
I'm sorry.
introduced on time?
Do you want to expand on that? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Never been in 20 years.
Yeah, it was introduced on time.
Okay.
You know that answer.
I wanted to ask about the Edison Park Athletic Complex proposal that I know the county commissioners are backing. They had an event this week and have big plans for not only Edison Park, but also the neighboring County College campus. Does anybody on the council have a perspective on that? Are you supporting it? Is it something you think is good for Edison?
I will let the council speak for it at the end of the meeting if they choose to.
Okay, I'd be very interested in hearing. I know it's a project that has drawn some opposition from, for instance, like Walt Stoschel and folks that are, care about open space preservation. I also have to, speak up and ask, why hasn't the administration responded substantively to my questions about the EPD's response to the immigrant bus? I know I've been here at a couple meetings. I've asked. Initially, I was promised some response from the BA. I have reached out multiple times to the deputy chief and the chief of the police department, gotten nothing from them. I see they're not here tonight, but the BA is. Can somebody speak to this? Was what the EPD did that night inappropriate?
I will not make comments on that, but I will let the BA answer as to why they did not respond to you.
I've answered this previously when you were here last time, and we don't have a response. And I also responded to your email.
Right, so when you say you answered by saying you won't respond.
Council President, I'm not going to go back and forth. I already have no response.
Back and forth.
Council President, just point of order, and no disrespect to you, Mr. Cratowell, but are we making this an interview process? He's a
Yeah,
reporter.
this
I
is-
don't mind, but most of the reporters do this offline.
Yeah,
If no one
I tried
responds
that
back
way.
to you, you get no comment, can't be reached. That's been your MO and many MOs for the last 30 years. I know. I'm just,
Yeah.
because we usually don't have a back and forth.
Council-
But out of respect. Thank you, Council President.
Council President, this
yes.
is your meeting, you should be responding to the resident,
yes,
not
I
anybody
understand.
in the council.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and all due respect to the council, I have reached out offline. I didn't get satisfactory answers, and that's why I came here.
So last time you said that you didn't get a comment or a response, so I made sure that you got a response. Unfortunately, if you don't like the response, that's not something under our control.
Yeah.
That is what you got is what you get. Sorry.
Okay, well, I will not accept your apology. I do not find this acceptable. After what happened, I think the township owes the public a response, and that's why I keep coming here to ask for it. I hope you all read my article on this topic, available free to the public online at newbrunswicktoday.com, and I would like to hear responses from the council later this evening. If anybody read it, watched the videos, has a response, I would encourage you to speak up, since the administration is exercising their right to remain silent on this. It's a very serious matter. I think there may have been violations of the U.S. Constitution, violations of civil rights, and My concern comes from the fact that the videos were not released pursuant to the OPA request until after a lawsuit was filed. And now that the truth is out there, everyone who had anything to do with it is being silent and not owning up to that. And you know, before you respond, I do also want to share with you a document, if I may. So for your information, this is some responses I got from NJ Transit, who did substantively respond to a series of questions, and I can report that the Edison police, when this whole thing went down, it was about 2:30 in the morning, and they told the folks they talked to that the train station was not open 24/7, and implied that they had missed the last train and would have to move along. But actually that night there was a special train. It was New Year's Eve into New Year's morning, and so there was a train that arrived. You can see it in the body-worn camera videos. And the Edison police, in addition to all the shenanigans, all the inappropriate comments, they gave bad information about when the trains were coming, and folks that could have just gotten on the train and there would have been no issue were interfered with. Their right to travel was interfered with, and ultimately a issue was created where there was no issue by the Edison police. So I think somebody should own up to that. I see the chief's back, so Mr. Chair, I hope that you'll yield the floor to the chief and let the chief respond on behalf of the police department about whether what happened or not that night was appropriate. And I hope that you speak up yourself.
I understand, but unfortunately, this is not a place.
You mind if I?
Yes, I will let the council speak.
As you pointed out, sir, at the very beginning, you believe that there may have been civil rights violations, other violations committed. Whether or not that's the case, I'm not going to comment on, but I will advise the council that the unfortunate reality is in today's climate, commenting on it can only hurt you in the event that there is any kind of lawsuit now or in the future. So take that as it will.
All right, well, I think in the United States of America, we should have transparency. The people of Edison deserve better than this. The obstruction around the OPA request was essentially a cover-up, and we need the FBI to come in. Thank you.
All right, next person up is Stephanie Woomer.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Warmer, 48 Bradley Drive. I'm here to discuss the resolution for the change order for the sports building roof. I'm on the Edison Jets board, the Parents Auxiliary for Edison Boys Baseball. I'm on the Parents Board for Edison High Football. I'm a catechist at St. Matthew's, a coach for the girls' spring football at Jets. I'm a mother of 3 boys, and I work full-time. I'm not listing my community service for accolades, but rather to show I have a passion to give back, not only for my boys, but for the good of the community. When the mayor had a roundtable discussion with the sports organization, I was glad that they opened the discussion up to all board members, and what was clear when I was brought to the table was that women were not well represented. Equal opportunity is important to me because growing up as an athlete, it was clear boys were more highly regarded than girls. And while things are getting better, there is still work to do. When the discussion was brought up around bringing turf to the Jets, I brought up the fact that our girls had no space of their own to practice. No longer is cheerleading just cheering on the sideline for the boys, but a sport where girls are tumbling, holding each other up, and learning sportsmanship from their coaches. I watched cheer coaches fight for space at the middle school and also rent space from gyms to practice their routines. In spite of all the odds against them, the Edison Jets have won title after title regionally and most recently nationally this past year. Our cheerleaders have for years shared space with the Edison Jets Little Eagles Wrestling, and of course the building will be shared with them going forward. Last year, we were able to start offering girls flag football. We had 6 girls on the team, and due to the construction of the turf, we were forced to practice at the park on Central Ave and contend with dog poop, bugs, and uneven ground. The girls of Edison, yet again, showed they were a force to be reckoned with and were able to win games. With the help of the turf field this year, the program has grown to 22. We hope to continue to grow the program. With the building, we can start earlier and enter into flag tournaments that take place early in the spring. We were grateful that the town council approved the building. However, without the change order being approved, we would be at the mercy of waiting for insurance to continue construction, which has already been plagued with weather issues. Every day we are stalled in another day, the kids of Edison do not get access to the space. I've seen on social media people complaining about the cost of the building and that it won't be offered to enough kids. We are one of the few programs in this town that offers something for both boys and girls, and we never, ever turned a child away. Between the Jets and the Little Eagles alone, we're talking about 400 kids. The Jets have relationships with many other sports in town, and we offer space when we can provide it. While millions of dollars have been allocated for this building, it would be shameful to make these kids continue to wait because of $187,000. I implore you to please pass this change order. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Joyce Freeman.
Joyce Freeman. I applaud the young lady that came up because I full-time work and I did cheerleading, and I think it's very important for female sports, and I'm glad that they added flag football, and they're giving out scholarships for that. So I think that's wonderful. I think with the massive amount of money we spent already, hey, what's 187,000 more to get it done? At all. Now, about the meetings and stuff, I know sometimes it's just like spitting in the wind because some other seniors called me today and said, where are the meetings? Where are the meetings? They said all they keep saying is a celebration from April. They're not able to see the meetings at a decent time, the ones that do not have Wi-Fi at all. Now, I want to ask about the Mini Beeville building. I want to know when the rubber floor was poured into the building, when did it first exist? And I see that we have a massive amount of engineers, and I would like to know why we don't have a project manager. And I would like to know the problem with the buildings and extra stuff is we don't have a project manager. We don't have the skills, we don't have it listed, we don't have all this information. We just go and throw something against the wall and we go, oh, they'll like that, boom, boom. There's no type of structure that goes on. We just throw it up against the wall like spaghetti. And if the good piece sticks, it sticks. And that's really sad to me because everybody's talking about the 2 tons of change orders with this town. That's all we have is change orders, change orders, change orders. Where is the project manager? Where is the person when we actually say we're doing a project? Where's that person? You know what I mean? We wouldn't have all these change orders because it's unfair to them and it's unfair to other people that all of a sudden we need some more money at the same time. All right, I don't think that's fair at all. Another thing I would like to know is how many company cars go home every night? How many cars are from Edison? How much money are we spending on gas for everybody and cars that we're giving out to people? You know, I don't mind a person that's going to be on call, okay? But some of the other people that have getting cars and the enormous salaries they get, I think that's a bit ridiculous. And our master plan. So we're going to have a master plan now that after all the lawsuits go down to New Brunswick and we lose them, then they're all going to be put on the master plan, and then we're going to be okay with it? Okay? Oh, and instead of sending out the illuminator, a lot of people would like to have a piece of paper saying, oh, when you get to Amboy Avenue, that's going to be closed off today. And at a certain spot in Woodbridge Avenue is going to be closed off. I know that was like a 3-minute ride for you to get to your job or your destination. Now it's going to be a half an hour out the way. It would be good if you sent somebody that. And somebody asked me about the budget. I told them, I said, it's semantics. They only have to introduce it to you. They don't have to present it at this time. And I want to know why, if a building is like 50 years old or more, that you don't know that asbestos is in the building. How do you not know that the building is toxic? And then we got this bid, we got 5 million, we have this bid over here. Oh, but we got to add some more change orders because of that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. We should know better than that at all. And then when they're talking about all these bonds that we have, people think everything is good. But what I don't like is I don't like it co-mingled. When you co-mingle it, you make the law enforcement and you make the fire department think that the people don't agree with the particular bond. Let them have their bond separately, and then you bond something else in the other way, because that's not fair to people at all. Because out of all this bonding, this whole administration will be gone when the chickens come home to roost, when everybody got to pay that extra money and the extra taxes. And I don't think it'll be fair, because a lot of these young people who have young children now, it'll come up later on. It may not come up now, but later on down the road, when it's time for them to go to college and go other places, it'll be that way. And then finally, talking about the final part about the budget, I rolled the dice. I took a chance. I didn't know. I thought the person who couldn't handle their HOA fees was able to budget correctly. But I see now, and I'm looking through the budget, and I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm looking at us with all this extra money. Now, I don't mind us spending money for good things, but some of the other stuff, some of these people and some of this double paying for lawyers and double paying for this, some of this stuff, I mean, did anybody up here read the Faulkner Act? Because it's like so many people up in that office, and the Faulkner Act doesn't go for that at all. But I'm just saying, and I'm saying that at the end, that we're spending wasteful money. The money that's important, the money is important to spend for that, for the young people but all this extra money to all these lawyers, all these engineers, all these other people, it's millions of dollars that we're spending. And guess what? And as Richard Lord says, we're reviewing that, because we're not answering anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Next up on the list is Joel Bassoff.
Joel Bassoff, 17 Beach Lane. I have several questions. First of all, regarding public advocate, the planning board recently denied an application for a building on the corner of Amboy and Cabot Avenues, and the decision was correct, but the planning board did not solicit expert witnesses to counter the testimony of the applicant's experts. So now the applicant is suing the planning board in Superior Court in an attempt to reverse the planning board's denial. So now the planning board has to pay to defend itself against the lawsuit, and they could lose in court because there were no expert witnesses in opposition to the applicant's expert witnesses. So if we had had a public advocate in that case, a public advocate could have put in expert witnesses, could have built an airtight case. The applicant, rather than suing, may very well have come back with a scaled back application that would have been suitable. But some people say that, well, we shouldn't have a public advocate because, oh, I'm sorry, am I interrupting?
No, I'm asking him a question about the public advocate so that I'm not misinformed.
But the ostensible reason for not having a public advocate is that it would be costly. Well, it's going to be costly for the planning board to defend against this lawsuit, and even more costly if they lose. So my question is, under this scenario, how is it that we were better off without a public advocate? Okay, another question is the J Dynasty property. Is Edison still planning to purchase that? Another question concerning, given that the planning board missed its 45-day deadline to come back with a report on repealing the 4-story ordinance for Amboy Avenue, when will the repeal of that ordinance be on the agenda? Or is the council and is the administration trying to give a developer more time to file an application for 4 stories? Regarding parking on Cabot Avenue, cars park at the commercial building on the corner of Cabot and Amboy, and they extend into the Cabot Avenue right-of-way. So can the council president or someone on the council speak to the public safety director to get parking enforced? The municipal code, section 10-9.6, prohibits obstruction of streets and public ways with vehicles. There's a section 7-18 that governs angled parking. It's reserved, so there's angled parking going on there, but it's not authorized by the ordinance. You can check that. And New Jersey statutes 39:4-138 says that there's to be no parking within 50 feet of a stop sign, and some of those cars are within 50 feet of a stop sign. So when can we get enforcement of the parking regulations for that location? Now, regarding the bonds ordinance, there's money in there for Amboy Avenue road resurfacing. My question is, why would the township be resurfacing a county road? It's County Route 501. And then on the agenda, item 8A, there's an item for renewing the contract of a finance consultant for over $200,000. Now, since we have a chief financial officer, what does Government Strategy Group do? And since we're paying over $200,000 for a finance consultant, in addition to what we pay for our own in-house finance department, why is the budget a month late? Regarding the March 11th work session and censorship, when will the recording of that March 11th work session meeting be restored to the YouTube channel and to the Edison TV channel? It's just censorship, pure and simple, to take down an entire meeting. Is it because someone cursed, or is it because maybe someone on the council said something that the administration is unhappy with, and that's just a pretext for hiding the video? Also on the agenda, items 11H and J, there's $247,000 worth of change orders. Has anyone questioned the legitimacy of those change orders? And then something that really should have been on the agenda several meetings ago, the ordinance with updated definitions for warehouses, distribution centers, and fulfillment centers. When will we have that ordinance, or are we waiting for the industry to draft the ordinance with appropriate loopholes for us?
Can you repeat that one? Sorry, I missed the last one.
So at one point, the council considered an ordinance with updated definitions for logistics centers, warehouses, distribution centers, and fulfillment centers. The ordinance was pulled. It had some glaring loopholes, and we haven't seen that ordinance revived. So my question is, when will we see the ordinance? And maybe I'm being sarcastic, maybe I'm hitting on the truth. Are we waiting for the industry to draft that ordinance for us so that they can put in the loopholes that they're looking for? So those are my questions.
Oh, well, you came prepared, Joel. All right, well, I'll start from the bottom, okay?
Okay.
All right, so for the waiting as to when we're going to put that in, we will put it up soon when it's ready. I don't have a specific timeline. We are working as a council together, not with the industry, as a council, to put it together, but we do have to come to agreement, because putting it up to fail is not the solution to here we're looking for. We're looking for something that can pass and something that works for the town. For the work session to be reposted, I am not too sure who handles that.
I have the answer. Actually, I can respond to that if
Council
that's
Vice
okay.
President?
Yes, I spoke to Bob Deal today, and he said that work session can be found on YouTube, but they will not be restoring it to Edison TV.
So it is available, no censorship, just available on YouTube. As to the government strategies, the 8A, Sonia, can you answer that as to what does the finance consultant service do in addition?
The company serves as our financial director of the entire department.
So can you expand a little bit? Just essentially, she's the one that's running the whole department.
Correct. So under finance, globally, you have obviously the finance department, there are payroll services, there's tax collection, tax assessor, and everything that we handle with regard to our financials, whether it's processing of our bills, but it oversees all of the staff within that department. And it's been like this for, I want to say, 10 years or so. So they've been here a long time, and their services are great.
Thank you, Sonia. As for the bond surface ordinance and the road resurfacing, is that a county road as to why?
There's no road resurfacing. It's specifically the title, it's Amboy Ave Streetscape Improvement Project. And just to go back, we did cancel those ordinances for the Amboy, and this really just reintroduces some of the projects we were going to do, or they had allocated years ago, so we're just reintroducing that.
Okay. In terms of, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Oh, parking enforcement on the Calvert and Amboy. Can we get someone on that, please?
Sure, I did check with the chief, and he can certainly elaborate. We're not aware of enforcement issues. Obviously, if there are, we would appreciate if you could just give us a call, and we'll take care of it. But we didn't have any specific issues to report on parking.
Okay. I think we're good there. Repeal of the agenda. In terms of the J Dynasty, I'm not sure what the administration's plan is. They have not told me anything about it.
There is none, Council President.
Okay. And in terms of public advocate and the experts, as of right now, where we stand, we do have the ability to hire experts, and they can. If they felt that that particular case did not require experts, then it is up to the board to decide whether they hire them or not. But it is in their right, and they have the financial needs. We have ensured as a council to do that. So it is a judgment call. I believe you believe that there needs to be experts on that. Maybe they felt they already have experts, engineers they already have. Can you elaborate, Counselor?
Usually applications, they have them reviewed by the engineers and by the planner in order to have a response and in order to respond accurately during the hearing, raise questions, raise issues with any kind of submitted plans so that the board can make an informed decision. Those are the retained experts that work for the board.
And also the reports that Hank Bignell makes, those are all really well detailed and pertaining to, as a court case, they could be used. So I believe we are loaded up in terms of tools to, fight overdevelopment. And I don't necessarily agree with your assessment that a public advocate would have made any situation different. But thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Okay. You'll hear follow-up.
All right, moving on to anybody that would like to speak. Come on up.
Akhtar Nasser, Pleasant Avenue. I enjoy seeing discussion items that our council people put into agendas. The items that you put into discussion lists give the public insight on who you guys are and what you stand for and what issues you care about. I'm fortunate that 6 of the 7 council people engage with me through texts, phone calls, emails, offline chats, so I have a good idea of who you are. However, those residents who don't engage with you, as I do, would likely be unaware of who or what you represent. So I had a hypothesis. I said that we can learn about who you are without listening to a word you say. So I decided to put all your discussion items from this year into an AI to generate a response of what matters to you. So the disclaimer I had with this is that I think it did a good job of capturing the spirit of the council people, but not necessarily how you vote. So we'll start with Councilman Brescher. Said that your concerns are on community governance.
Council President, this is point of order. This is not something that she.
This is the oral petitions and remarks. It's
He is
open
allowed-
comment.
I don't understand.
It has to do with municipal
Can you
government.
please stop his time?
He's throwing AI
One second.
into
Let
comments.
me make this. He is allowed to make any comments that he chooses, even if we don't like it. If the AI comes back and says we don't care about certain things, it's fine. You are more than welcome to defend yourself, because I don't necessarily agree with his assessment that the AI, based on the discussion items that we put up, is what it is. We can care about a lot of other things, pushing other agendas, but discussion could be something that we talk about because we want to talk about it in public, and not necessarily everything we do needs to be discussed in public. But that is your call to say whatever you please. You can continue. Marleon, please.
So I agree with what the AI put there. I decided to have an unbiased. I don't think that you're going to hear anything that you wouldn't have liked, but we do have decorum that we spoke about the other time, and I don't appreciate being interrupted. Councilman Brescher.
I just think what you're doing is juvenile.
Councilman Koya, please. You can
taking
continue.
AI
Councilman Coyle.
to
Councilman
go through
Coyle.
someone's
Point of order.
comments.
Please.
It's ridiculous.
Councilman
And you're a
Coyle.
school
Chair can
teacher.
use AI in his speech. Let the resident
All
use
right,
AI.
everyone, please. I will have to ask for a recess if you do not let the residents speak. I'm here to listen to him. I can listen to you guys after he's done. I promise. All right,
Now,
continue.
I didn't say that the speech wrote my AI. I said that this is the input of the discussion items that you put there, and the AI generated an answer of what you stand for. All right, Councilman Brasher, your concerns, and I hope I'm going to get my time back. Your concerns are on community governance, including infrastructure, public safety, environmental protection, economic development, and social services. You are dedicated to addressing a wide range of issues to enhance the overall well-being and quality of life for residents. Councilman Coyle, your concerns are on fostering a thriving and sustainable community with a focus on economic vitality, social equity, and the overall well-being of residents. I think that's a nice thing to say. Councilman Patil, your concerns are on public safety, infrastructure, community development, and fiscal management with a focus on addressing residents' needs and concerns to enhance the overall quality of life in the community. Councilman Harris, you kind of broke the AI, it stalled for a little bit. Your concerns are on local government or community leadership with a focus on addressing a variety of issues and concerns relevant to the residents. Councilman Patel, your concerns are about being involved in community development and improvement efforts, particularly focusing on infrastructure, transportation, and communication. Councilman Pointer, you are concerned about various aspects of community development, governance, environmental conservation, and technological innovation. Councilman Schmuel, I couldn't find any discussion items in the last 5 months that you've been a council member. If I overlooked this, please let me know. I will give you a free pass because you are the newest addition and the EDO voted you in. Nonetheless, I'm hopeful that you will add 1 or 2 more things in the next month. If you need a quick place to reference, look at the email I CC'd to all council members last week in regards to safety. Councilman Schmuel, since I haven't had any items to send to the AI, the only way I can gain insight about you is on what you have voted on. I don't know if you're aware of this, but every vote in some shape or form that deals with Clara Barton, you have voted against. Be that the resolution from 4 to 3, or even something that would benefit the entire town, a public advocate. As I understand, there is a lawsuit between the planning board and the town. It sure would have been great if we had more expert testimony by the town. If we lose, this is a clear indication of why we need a public advocate. We barely had any expert testimony by the town. Councilman Schmuel, I hope that before you wield your 15% of the vote against Clara Barton again, that you connect with me offline as I do with the other 6 members of the council on a given day. Better yet, you could meet the people of Clara Barton at their monthly meetings that just about every council person here has attended. If you do, I am sure that you would easily find 1 discussion item to add. My guess is that you're a reasonable person and that you would stand up for the quality of life of the people who elected you. Now, we don't need AI to find something striking this week. If you look at the discussion items for this week, only North End Edison council members have listed items for Clara Barton. You would think that since Clara Barton is on the south side, that at least 1 of the 4 council members in Clara Barton would mention the hot topics of the residents. I will end with this. 2 weeks ago, we asked the council legal team about how can we move forward about the 4 to 3 story language which the planning board has decided that they're going to do an unlimited time study, and it'll likely be wrong. So where can we move forward? I do not want to wait on the planning board to go ahead and take a year, 2 years, and also come back with the wrong decision. So where does that leave us now? You said that you would have an answer for us.
So we are still in the same position. We're in the position we were in before it was sent over to the planning board, which is that we have the option to nuke the entire ordinance, which has its own problems. We have the option to rewrite the ordinance ourselves, vote on it, introduce it, send it over to them. Again, there could be issues there, or we could do what was suggested and what was actually carried out, which is ask the planning board to rewrite the ordinance appropriately, which is what they're in the process of doing, the way that they're supposed to do it.
All right, and given everything I said, and since there was 1 council member that had a problem with what I said, if you feel I said something that was incorrect or unreasonable, this is your time to go ahead and interject.
Your time is up. Thank you up there.
I definitely think it's unreasonable what you did.
Councilman Coyle,
Period. He's asking a question. I'm going to answer,
you're-
Council President.
you're not
You're a
recognized.
school teacher. I'm just surprised you would do that.
Councilman Coyle.
To put down one of my council colleagues. He's a new member, you know that. That was just wrong of you.
I
but
will
call what you
address,
want.
I will address that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we've been very good.
Councilman
meeting with you
Coyle.
offline,
Please, point
Private
of,
meetings.
may I ask for a recess? Thank you.
Motion to go in recess.
Or 5 minutes, and may I get a second?
Second.
All right, we'll be back at 6:40. The meeting's not over. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
We got 11 seconds, 10 11 seconds.
All right, the work session of May 20th is back in order. So if everyone can please, please sit down so we can have our meeting started again. Thank you very much. Now, I am going to go answer Akhtar as to what he asked. First, I honestly think that it is unfair to categorize someone's work based on only the discussion items. As I stated earlier, this is a portion of what the council does, not everything that they do. This is something that they choose to discuss in public. And Councilman Shmuel is a new councilman, and I personally think it's very important, and I personally went through this, it's very important to listen and understand and figure out everything before you start talking. And the other thing I want to mention here is that if you want people to work with you, Akhtar, this is a word of advice. I always like to not antagonize people that then they choose to work with you. If you antagonize them, I don't think necessarily you're asking for help, you're just looking to antagonize. Now, going on to the Clara Barton section, I would like Hank, if you don't mind, coming up explaining what's going on in the 3 stories and the 4 stories, because that is a concern of the Clara Barton, and I want to make sure we address it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The planning board received your request to look at the change to the ordinance or the rehabilitation plan from 4 stories down to 3 stories. Since the master plan is still ongoing, they hired or asked the master plan planner, that group, to look at that in detail and provide that information. I think that'll be back to them within 30 days or so, and it should be part of the overall plan one way or the other. I haven't decided either way, but that's what they've done.
So they are working on it.
Absolutely.
It's not
They're
something they're
ignoring
sitting
it.
on
No,
it.
they're looking at it, and the people that they were at the meeting too, I heard the same thing I heard. So
Okay.
it's going to be before the planning board as she completes her report.
And while I have you here, can you elaborate on public advocate? I know you might not be able to comment on everything, but what is your opinion as to a public advocate? Actually, never mind.
Yeah, I don't want to share my opinion.
Okay, you know what? That is fair. I will not put you.
But I'm not sharing it with you, so let's do it that way.
I will not put you on the spot. That is unfair. But that would be it for now.
Okay.
Clara Barton. I will move on to anybody else that would like to speak. Come on up, sir. You can come on up, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Boslett, 5B Center Street. I was born and raised in this town. I was born at JFK Hospital. I've been here for 50 years. I left for college, came right back because I love the town. I've been involved in I shouldn't say most of the rec sports in town as either a player or a coach or an e-board member. I'm here to speak to you tonight about the resolution for the money to complete or for the roof of the sports building. There's a few things I wanted to point out. My fellow board member Steph did an eloquent job and covered most of the bases, so I don't have to. But she does that most of the time. She's a great board member. She takes care of everything. There's a few issues that need to be pointed out. The money, from what I've been told and what I understand, is more or less a bridge loan. We pay it to keep construction going. The errors and omissions insurance of our engineer or architect, whoever's in charge of making that plan up, should be responsible to reimburse for that, which is great. We'll get it back, hopefully. You all know how insurance companies work. Yeah, wait. Before you know it, it's 2 weeks, it's 4 weeks, it's 2 months. Now, not only does that delay our completion of the building, but that construction company is not going to sit on their hands and wait for us to say, okay, go ahead and do it. They're going to charge for every day that they're not allowed to work. So now it snowballs to even a bigger bill if we wait or we table it or we hesitate. That's as important as the time frame we want to get this thing finished. There's many children that are waiting for this with bated breath. And any delay would hurt their chances of getting into it this coming winter. It's not that far away to where we have time to burn. We really don't. Every day counts. We had a terrible spring, and it delayed, with all the rain we had, it delayed days of work. Constantly. I would go over there and check with the guys, and yeah, sorry, Dan, we got to get the pumps going. Everything's filled with water. Sorry, we're gone for another 4 days, another 2 days. We're not going to be able to work. So with the uncharacteristically wet spring, and now this change order possibly delaying things, it's going to be a long shot to have it done by the winter, and we desperately, desperately need it for the winter. I'd like you guys to take that into consideration when you pass your vote, when you make your decision, and keep in mind that, again, this is more or less a bridge loan to get us through, and hopefully the town will get it back. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Council President. Yes, I do hear, what the residents are saying about the sports facility. And just to be on the record, right, this isn't endless money that can be given out. I guess we're up to about 12 million for one organization. I think I spoke to the president about it. I said if I was mayor, it'd probably be a $5 million facility, and the other groups in the town would have also gotten $5 million. And you probably could have built yourself a pretty nice facility. You might not have had the little extra accompaniments like a generator, right, or a basement, but you would have had the square footage for the children, that's for sure. I know when the cheerleaders came and they had a problem where they couldn't get room for mats in the schools, I made sure that we have room for the kids for mats in the school in Herbert. So the children have always been paramount. But my question is, they talk about a schedule. Do you guys have any timeline when you believe you're supposed to get this building?
There's no back and forth.
Because, and the reason why I asked that is I believe I asked the administration last week for a schedule, and they're unable to get a schedule. So I thought maybe the leagues might have better knowledge than, the mayor administration.
There's no back and forth. I appreciate the information, but I will.
Right, and this is where I go with it, is there's information that I still haven't received. I know the BA is trying to acquire me this information. My personal feeling is that we should have had it already. Nothing I'm asking for, and that's going to be in my discussion items, so I'll get into that.
Well, I think we'll wait till that particular portion to have that discussion.
Okay, I'll go through it at that time.
Thank you.
Council President.
Anybody else? Come on, sir.
Sue Malone Barber, 85 Pleasant Avenue.
You're recognized.
Hi. Can I ask Mr. Bignell a question?
No, unfortunately, you have to ask me the question. And
Okay. So I sent everybody a letter. I know you've gotten it. I heard from Councilman Brescher, and I see Councilman Brescher and Council Vice President Harris and Councilman Patil have Clara Barton and the 3 to 4 stories on their talking points tonight. What we heard at the planning board is not really footing with what Mr. McNeil just said, but maybe it's changed. But what we heard at the planning board and why, we're not crazy. It really did look like the resolution was intentionally buried, was that we need to do a study on the area to determine why there has been no development, 4-story development in the area since 2016, and what is economically realistic or feasible, I forget the exact language. And we were also told there's no timeline on that study. When we compared to what was in the master plan with the 4 stories, it was pointed out that Jade Dynasty and Stewart's both still were in the master plan as benefiting from 4 stories. Lots and properties don't benefit. Real estate agents and developers benefit at the detriment of the neighboring homes. But that aside, we were told that those two properties, because they are large lots, were illustrative of what might be more beneficial on a large lot on Amboy Avenue. So it was an easy line to draw that any new study will cover lots that might also benefit from 4 stories. And there was absolutely, we were told, no timeline on this study. Then Councilman Pointer, when he gave his recap at the council meeting, said that, who are they? Who's the master plan people?
BFJ.
BFJ?
BFJ or BFP.
Yeah. That they were doing a review. And then the council attorney said the planning board turned it over to their experts to be rewritten. And now what Mr. Bignell just said is similar to that it does have a timeline on it, and the language is being looked at to be changed. So none of that hung together based on what we were told the night of the planning board. So that's one thing. So we're not crazy. It's good. If that's the real story and that's what's going to happen, that's good. It still does seem like a delay because of the mixed messages, and also because Clara Barton and Amboy Avenue don't need another study. We've had study after study after study. That aside, I see on tonight's agenda the talking points by Councilman Brescher, Councilman Harris, and Councilman Patil, but I would like to ask directly a couple of questions to the other council members, if I may. I'm directing this to you, Council President, and to you, John, and to you, Asaf. Why? I'm pretty sure the 3 council members that I mentioned earlier would move to an ordinance. We don't have to wait for the planning board. You have the power. You guys can move to an ordinance. Why? What's in the way of that, and why won't you? And if someone presented an ordinance, would you vote yes on it? And if not, why not? Councilman Shmuel, Clara Barton is the center of the universe for us, and this town should be grateful that there are people advocating for their community. We shouldn't be scolded for that. So I don't know what's happening now, and I hope that you don't hold that against us. But I would like an answer to that. Like, what is in the way, and would the 3 of you vote for an ordinance that reduced to 3 stories? It's not hard, as I said. It's political. And Joe, I'm not asking you that question because I know where you stand, and I know why you stand there. You have a financial interest in one of the properties. So I'd like an answer to that question.
All right, so I will leave it to the council members if they choose to answer it. Would you like to answer anything?
Yeah, sure. Any other items? I don't want
Yeah, before we take your time, any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So,
We'll stop talking about Amboy Avenue if we go to 3 stories.
okay, now you can sit down. We'll have a councilman answer.
For myself, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not going to give any guarantees. That's not how I am. I wait for the information to be presented back, to which we send to the planning board for them to provide their report, amendments, and send it back here. So once I get that, I will formalize my final thoughts and comments based on that. Considering that I said yes to send it to the planning board, I think that should automatically indicate that I'm not opposed to it. The question as to what's in the way of an ordinance. Because it's done through the redevelopment aspect, when it was originally sent to the planning board, when the planning board originally reviewed the plan and the study, they made their indication based on that it was in conformance with the master plan, the 2003 master plan. So when we're talking about going and automatically updating an ordinance that does not have any updated backup document to show that this change would be in conformance with the master plan, I find then that we would be liable as a township and probably lose in court because we literally had something presented to the planning board. They found it in conformance with the master plan. It was sent back to council. Council did not object to it. So therefore, that council at that time, different council than what's up here, agreed with the planning board's assessment. So you have two governing bodies at that point that have said that those changes are in conformance with the master plan. Just updating the ordinance, yes, you can do it. I think that legally we would become liable on it, which is why all the times that we've discussed this, I've kept on saying that we need to go back to the redevelopment plan itself versus just making the adjustment. I hope that provides some clarification as to why I think you have to go the redevelopment plan route and the amendment before it gets to the ordinance. I understand the concern in regards to how it lines up with the current master plan revision. It makes it kind of a unique circumstance to have both being worked on side to side, but I hope my explanations at least give detail as to why I think the more appropriate course is to wait for the recommendation back from the planning board.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. And I agree with Councilman Pointer, what he said. Legally is a sound decision to wait. Also, from what I have heard from Hank and other members, that they are working on it, actively working on it. I know they're working not as fast enough as we would like, but I am okay to patiently wait for something good than rush something bad, especially if we just do it for the sake of doing it and open ourselves up to litigations and not exactly getting what we want. Even if you pass the ordinance and if they do 4 stories and if we deny them, they could have legal ways to get that, and we won't be able to do anything at that point. So yeah, I would rather do it right than do it wrong. And even if it takes time, I'd rather take that time to make it sure that we do it right. That would be my answer for that. And in terms of the hypothetical, unfortunately, I hate to say yes to a hypothetical ordinance that is perfect, because I find no ordinance is perfect. There's always a devil in the details. There might be something that I might not agree with, if not everything, but it might be something. And for that, I might, hold back. But yeah, that's that. Anybody else that would like to speak? Come on up. Oh, Councilman Shmuel, sorry.
You ask why I don't speak. Well, you got a concise answer from Councilman Pointer and even a more detailed answer from Council President. And to echo them, I would want to look at the plans, and I really don't have an objection to 3 stories or 4 stories, but we have to go through the proper channels. And until we do go through the proper channels, that's when I could vote on it.
Council President, can I make it?
Councilman Patel, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Council President. There is a history to Clara Barton redevelopment because I was one of the voting member back then. However, what was alluded here is the legal process and the legal changes, which is factually not true. Because this council makes the laws. We are the governing body. We are the legislative body. We make the laws. So back then we made the law putting Clara Barton into redevelopment zone. Master plan was not changed. So let me put the fact here. Master plan remains as is. It is, I don't know how many years old, 40, 50, 60. We passed the legislation that put the Clara Barton into redevelopment zone. We even looked at the possibility of putting the 4-story to give the economic viability for that particular neighborhood. Fast forward, 8 years down the road, the area is not redeveloped. So this body who proposed that law has every single right to repeal that law and get back to square one without any litigation. If someone has a conflict of interest, I'm not talking about the council, in terms of the redeveloper who has the active case, yes, that person might be able to sue the town. However, if there are no active planning or zoning board cases in that neighborhood, I don't think anything stops. This council can tonight revoke, move the motion to revoke that ordinance. Thank you, Council President.
Point of clarification.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Can I have the councilor answer the clarification, and then I'll get to you if you need to.
Council President.
One sec, let me have the council explain, and then we'll move on.
Certainly, I just want to reiterate the point that Mr. Pointer has made, that you yourself has made, that the safest, the best, the most unassailable way of doing this is the way that you're doing it now, so that there's an actual study, so that there's actual backup for the change, so that anyone who has a vested property interest in Clerk Barton can't challenge any action by the township council, can't challenge any kind of change to the ordinance, can't potentially overturn, disrupt, or upset anything that this council attempts to do. It's why it's going through the actual process that is done to ensure that you have an actual zoning ordinance that works and that can be enforced.
Councilman Pointer, if you'd like to.
And just as a point of clarification, I did say that we could pass the ordinance. I find that it would make us liable. I also find it a little ironic that there are individuals that support the public advocate and support this process, but then don't want the backing documents to support that decision. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. Would you like to speak, Councilman Pointer?
Councilor, I just wanted to make a few comments because some people assume I have a predictive answer to what I may say or support. I mean, I've been on Amboy Avenue longer than most people, doing great work to keep the community the way it is. And I know there's a lot of people in this room that do the same. But I think we've come to a closer opportunity meeting together and trying to find a resolution. To predict that 4 stories over 3 stories is the answer of why things aren't happening on Amboy Avenue. It's not a factual statement. It's an opinion. And we've had 30 units that are built over 35 years. So automatically you say, in your opinion, although you say for everyone, which is not true, it's not working because of the 4-story. It's just not working. I'm sorry, I'm speaking, Council President.
Let's know back and forth.
And I mean, it's just an opinion you have. You have to get out of the woods. When people come to spend $15 million in your community, you have to listen to see what and how we can work together for that opportunity. Hey, I could live with 3 stories. So many of us can. But still at the table, it's more about what they're going to invest in community, what matches the residents and what they want, the opportunity. But an aside, you won't carefully listen to any of the business people. You stated you don't care about the business people. They don't live here. Not true. Several people live in the community. And you just have to look at other townships and how they're falling to be a service community. And we're just 3-4 stores away from being service. You've sat in meetings before about complaints, too many nail salons. We don't control who rents space. Landlords control that based on the demand, who comes to them, and if they feel like doing a full search or just live with who's come to them, that's going to pay. So that's not in our wheelhouse. But when you talked about economic development and bringing more opportunity to bring specialty stores, I think that's where we're working parallel together. But to say 4 stories, this is the whole reason why things are not happening. It's just because of the timing of who's selling at the time and what's available and who wants to make the investment. We have 30 units in 30 years, and you're acting as a factual statement that the neighborhood is going downhill. One person makes statements, it's devastating the neighborhood. Okay, devastating a neighborhood where appraisal values are at $600,000 for a single-family home. $600,000 for a single-family home. Just show me the data. I'm open to sit down and listen, but we have to weigh the option of how investment matches risk, matches a financial gain for the community, so we start to have a mixed blend of service, restaurants, and specialty stores. I'd love to climb that way with you. I'm open, I've listened, I've lent my hand to you. I've been out, I've met with you. I've taken numerous phone calls from each one of you and talked to you face to face. I'm sorry that I've been sporting since 1992. I'm sorry that I'm out there working the gardens and making sure things look nice. I don't see some of you out there working every day to make it look beautiful, making sure graffiti's not in the community, making sure cars aren't selling all over the block, making sure trucks aren't parked everywhere. I wish we all would gang up together and go down to the area on the south end where Amboy Avenue is, by the Italian American Club, and do the same. Because that's where blading has been for a while, and we're doing nothing about that. So we have to put our heads together, and I'm open to sit down, and you know you can call me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Anybody else would like to speak? Come on up.
Keith Ewing, 3 Carmelo Drive.
You're recognized.
I'm also the vice president of the Edison Jets. I'd like to apologize for the council for speaking out of turn. I'd like to apologize to you, Mr. Brescher, for speaking while you were speaking. But I do want to clarify some of the things you were saying. As far as the timeline, our timeline is as soon as possible. Last year at the beginning of, before our season even started, our water was shut off at our existing concession stands and restrooms. We didn't have them all season. We've had porta-johns down there for the last year plus. We still don't have the electricity on for our stadium lights. So our timeline is as soon as possible. And to clarify something else you said, it's not all this money going to one organization. We play well with others. Edison United uses our fields and most likely will be using the facility as well. Edison Wrestling, our cheerleaders, Midtown Softball holding pitching and catching clinics in there. Edison Boys Baseball, when they have overflow for their clinics. I mean, our doors open to the entire sports community in Edison and beyond that. We have no thought of keeping things from anyone or keeping anyone out of a facility that's for everyone. But we do need to get the ball rolling. I mean, we see the progress, and if it stops, it's just gonna make it worse, and we're gonna go another season without having concession stands, another season in porta-johns that honestly are horrible, not because they're not come to be, the township doesn't do their part to send people out to clean them and maintain them the way they do, but because other residents in the town don't treat them with any amount of respect. They see them and they see an opportunity. The fishing derby was beginning of May, and the same day of the fishing derby, someone threw fish that they had caught at the lake inside the porta-john the day after they had been cleaned. So when we're down there practicing with our girls for flag football, we have to smell rotting fish. So we need the building to move along so that we don't have to deal with those kind of things. It's not a question of we're getting all of this to one organization. Again, we share with everybody. We work with everyone. Many of us are board members and members of all these other organizations throughout town, and we are more than happy to make it available and share that with them. Just the thought that it's only going to one organization is just not true. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Council President.
Councilor, if you don't mind, can we wait till we get to the discussion and we can discuss it at once, if you don't mind?
This is in relation to what he said.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get that. I really like to hear that you guys are going to share this with everyone else. Unlike you guys, I guess, I've sat up here and I've heard like that this building was going to be used also for basketball. Now, in looking at the drawings, I don't see a way that you can use them for basketball. So I was told by somebody in the administration what this was going to be used for. And then I'm looking at plans and it doesn't. And I do understand you're wanting to get in there, right, as soon as possible, and I really do. I do understand that the mayor asked you guys to come down here so this doesn't hold you up, right? I mean, I heard it with my own ears too. But we all know what that was. I mean, this was so the mayor could get this thing approved without somebody going through and vetting the numbers themselves. So I hope that you guys stay till we get to that discussion item so you can understand the problems that there are with this change order. And just to say spend the money and we hope to get it back. As a councilman that's here to watch over all the money, yeah, that's kind of hard to do when we're talking about maybe it could be held up for a week and a half. Where I'm looking at that you guys can't be even in there right now until at least November at a minimum. That's if everything goes great and you have sunshine. So that's just from being in construction my whole life. Otherwise, I don't see how it gets done. So whether it's November 1st or November 15th, 20 years from now when these children are the coaches there, no one's ever going to remember this. You know what I mean? This is the small potatoes of it. The place will be built, the children will be playing there. Nobody remembers about the Shamrock Field, which the township paid for, and we spent the money to build the entire Shamrock Field, which I was a part of, by the way, that now is sitting there, overgrown with grass, not used. So I definitely know about spending money, and I definitely know about spending money for the youth, but this process isn't really that long to do. If the administration gets me the information, which you'll see my questions later on, all these questions I could have had on Friday. Today's Monday. I could actually have it before I leave here. Very good possibility that there is no problem. Maybe the architect didn't even make a mistake, to be honest with you. I can't even fall into that category yet. But, you know, I appreciate your love for the sport, for our residents. I don't think there's any bad intention by anybody, you know, with the Jets. Reminds me of the Shamrocks when I was younger. So I commend you guys for doing that and for coming down. But at the end, just listen to what I have to say. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Anybody else that would like to speak?
Hi, good evening. My name is Jen Westlake from Gales Road in Edison.
You recognize?
I am also a lifelong resident, born and raised here for 50 years. I grew up through the Edison Jets program, and I have to say that we've come a long way from the Lindenau school parking lots and all the cuts from all the glass and the cans where we used to practice. My children are growing up through the Edison Jets program. I have a football player and a cheerleader. I'm currently on the e-board. I help run the cheer program. My son is also a Little Eagles wrestler. I think that the facility is wonderful for all the children of Edison. As far as basketball goes, this was the first I've heard of it that, you know, I was under the impression there were a place for basketball in every school in Edison. They all have basketball hoops. As far as cheer and wrestling go, our mats are at Herbert Hoover. Come November, we are physically on top of each other trying to practice. We are bound by the school's days off, half days, when we're not allowed to use the facility. And you have two organizations trying to share one small space, and we definitely, you know, it's definitely a distraction for the children. I want this facility at the Edison Jets for everyone to enjoy. I'm not sure if it's possible to cover every sport in Edison. I would love it to. I would never turn anyone away from using the facility. We're very excited about it. My cheerleaders are ecstatic. Our season has grown because our program has grown, and we're looking forward to getting it completed. So any help that we can get would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Ben from Edison, New Jersey. Do I have the floor, Council President?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Council President. And hello, everyone, and good evening. I haven't been here for quite some time. I've been busy with some role playing, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys see my TikTok videos, but I actually got fired as a rookie police officer. If you haven't seen that, check the TikTok videos. But now I'm a lieutenant in the United States Army, you can say. So, yeah, it's getting crazy in where I'm at in my own world. But anyway, back to the IRL issues in this township. I've been seeing things that are just absolutely head-scratching, eye-opening, and too many headaches of the people behind me of the Edison residents. I'll make it short and sweet. Let's just get things done. The overpaying of what I've been seeing is absolutely unnecessary. The overpaying of the tax dollars for these people have to pay for the next 2 years. Nobody ain't gonna be living here anymore. The Edison Jets field. Okay, great, we got that field, but we still need work to be done for these kids. These are the future of our township. The splash park is amazing. That's in progress. I just spoke to somebody maybe last week about it. I went on the site. It looks amazing. It looks like Crystal Springs, but like a small version of it, you know? So yeah, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming out here and showing your support. And please listen to the Edison residents. It's Ben's. Take care. I rest my case.
Thank you, Benz.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to speak? All right, seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public
Motion to
portion?
close the public portion.
May I have a second? Motion by Councilman Coyle, second by Council Vice President. All in favor? All right, moving on to review of minutes. Any comments on A through E? All right, seeing none. Moving on to number 6, reports from all council committees. To my right, Councilman Brescher.
None at this time,
All right,
sir.
Councilman Coyle.
None, sir.
Council Vice President.
Yes. Starting with the Cultural Arts Commission, we met last Tuesday, the 14th. We're still waiting to hear from administration regarding pavers for the front area of the front entrance area to this building that we would use as a fundraiser. So people would pay for whatever they want to say on a paving block or tile or something like that. So we're waiting to hear back from administration on that. We are now the clearinghouse for all exhibits, and this is at the mayor's request. And that includes the gallery. I guess that would include when the Ferrante House is completed, it would be the Ferrante House and any other exhibition space. The Human Rights Commission would want to have some exhibition space in the new North Branch Library when that's built, and we would like them to do an exhibit in the gallery downstairs. Lois Tarr will be redecorating the gallery for the upcoming holidays for red, white, and blue. We also discussed displaying the names of those Edison veterans who died in past wars. We are still waiting to receive a list of places for mural paintings, also waiting for a list of utility boxes to decorate by high school students. The Jazz Festival lineup is coming along really well, September 25th. And we have commitments from 3 performers. One is Off the Hook, which is JP Alumni Group. Carrie Jackson, who is fabulous, really just terrific, in the style of Ella Fitzgerald. She's a jazz vocalist, singer, and Akiko Tsuruga, or Sudiga, she's an organist. There will also be a dance troupe. That's the cultural arts. On the library board, we also met on the 14th, and Friends of the Library Book and Bake Sale was extremely successful. Alan Kleiman discussed the renovations, the work done so far at the main library, and what still needs to be done prior to the official start on Tuesday, that's tomorrow. The North Edison Branch project is moving at a rapid pace, anticipated to go before the planning board in June or July. The bookmobile is running very well. The Sprinter van, which is a smaller van, is in the shop for mechanical issues. Alan discussed the possibility of updating the library hours for the summer, and regarding the shared services agreement, Ms. Massey had acknowledged that the agreement is still needed, and in my discussion with Bob Deal today, it sounds like that is being scheduled. That is the end of that. And I just want to say, this is not an official report from the animal shelter, but it's from an anecdotal report of my visit there a week ago Saturday, in which I was so impressed by the condition of the shelter. They have done great work, and we have the shelter director here, Tina Pasakinski. Wonderful things have been done in this past year. It's clean, there's no odor, and the outdoor runs, there have been additional outdoor runs. Most of the dogs were outside when I was there. And so I'm really, really pleased, and my fellow subcommittee members should be pleased by what's been going on there. They had a drop-off of 10 pointer lab puppies that were snapped up in just in a New York minute. And so the shelter is running really, really well, and I was so impressed by my visit there. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Councilman Patil?
None at this time, sir.
All right, I'm going to skip Councilman Pointer. Councilman Shmuel?
Not this time, sir.
Okay, as for me, just wanted to mention Open Space Committee's mayor's tour between Metuchen and Edison this Sunday, which was attended by Council Vice President, Councilman Pointer, Councilman Coyle, the mayor, and I. And it was a wonderful weather. We had the highest number of riders, more than 170, at a little bit before the closing bell, so it might have been more. But it was wonderful. And I must say, I could not finish, but Council Vice President did finish, so I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of Councilman Pointer. But I did love the bike tour. It gives you a different perspective of Edison. When you go a little slower through all of the town, you get to see a little bit more. So I hope all of you do get on a bike and ride our beautiful town. That's it for me. Councilman Pointer, any reports on the council committees?
No direct reports. I know we have the Education Committee meeting tomorrow. I believe Councilman Brescia is working on the Veterans Committee. And I know there's a Finance Committee and a subcommittee, Public Safety Committee that is being worked on.
Yeah,
But no direct reports. Thank you.
The public safety is most probably going to be this Thursday, still waiting on confirmation. And I do want to make an announcement for the mayor's budget presentation. Will be on June 13th, the Thursday. Again, June 13th, Thursday, that'll be the mayor's budget presentation at 6 p.m. It's going to be 6 to 8 p.m. All right, moving on to points of light. Any council members with any points of lights?
Yes.
Council Vice President.
Yes, just to piggyback on what you, Council President, said on yesterday, it was first of all, it was amazing how many people showed up for this bike tour. And we could not have asked for better weather. But I have to ask Ray Porio, when did all the roads in Edison become uphill? Something's happened between last year and this year, because it can't possibly be that I'm out of shape. So can you maybe do something about that next year? Because yikes. But it was a wonderful, wonderful day. And I'll tell you what, these kids who participated just left everyone in the dust. They are real troopers. So it's a great event, and I would encourage anyone who can participate next year to join us. Speaking of bikes, I also wanted to comment on the Police Unity Tour, which started a week ago last Friday and ended on that Sunday in Washington. And I got to tell you, I was at the kickoff at the Franklin Municipal Building. It was a horrible weather day. It could not have been a worse weather day unless it was snowing, because it was raining, it was cold, and this was the kind of weather that our 17 or so riders had going to Philadelphia. But they did it, and they had good weather on Friday from Philadelphia to Baltimore, and then on into Washington. So I really want to salute these members of our Edison police force, and I think I would like to offer a round of applause for the cause that they were riding for. So I'd like this to go out. Oh, and what I failed to mention, I wanted to give my thanks with regard to the 24-mile bike tour yesterday. I want to thank the Edison Police Department, Edison Police Auxiliary, the Metuchen Police Department, Department of Recreation, and the RVR EMS services. I would be remiss if I didn't mention how seamless they make this bike tour, how they keep our safety, the safety number one, and it could not have gone off better. So if not for these particular departments, it wouldn't have gone off so well. So I want to thank all of them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Anybody else?
Council President,
Councilman Coyle.
I enjoyed the bike tour myself, and I did bike about 1.5 miles, and I did hit an uphill, and I want to answer the Council Vice President's question, because the reason why the roads are at a different slope is because all the paving we've done more in the last 30 years in this town. I want to thank the DPW and the town for getting that done. But I was most excited to see all the young children and families together in different organizations, and I agree with everything Vice President said. But most important of excitement was when I went through Papier Park and I saw the new splash park, and knowing that next year that's where they'll wind up, at that splash park where that's going, and passing the turf fields, that were just several teams, multiple sports are going on at that turf field. So exciting, so much that never got done and so much that's getting done. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Anybody else with any points of lights? All right, moving. For me, there is the prepper shedding event on Sunday, June 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the parking lot of the town halls. The Memorial Day Parade will take place on Saturday, May 25th, starting at noon on Plainfield Ave. Begins at Division Street, and it will end at Lindell School at Blossom Street. Farmers Market will take place starting May 30th to October 24th at Swales Park, every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. And I do have to agree with everything Council Vice President said, that each department did a wonderful job through the recreation to the police department. They made it seamless and very safe, and I enjoyed every moment of it, and I hope to redo it next year. Now, moving on to each department, any questions or comments? Number 8, from the Business Administration, A through C. Any questions or comments?
Council President?
Councilman Pointer.
In regards to item A, my experience with the firm has been fantastic. I know Ken Roberts he's answered every single question that I've reached out to him about, so no complaints here, and I'm happy to see, hopefully they have the support to continue their services. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer.
Yeah, Council President, I echo the sentiment. Ken is always cooperative. You ask any question, he will answer, and I'm happy that, happy to support this resolution.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Councilman Fresh.
Yes. I'd like to echo what my colleague said. I've known Ken's been working here on many different things for us. Actually, and he's been enlightening when it comes to questions about finance, which is what I think we're hiring him for. But every question I've ever asked him, he's spent as much time as I needed for me to understand it, for him to go through it. So I do recognize his importance to this township.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher.
Council President, I just wanted to echo the words of my council colleagues, but if you haven't met Ken, Ken will answer every question. But this town was at a rating and much worse than we were 10 years ago. And today, he's not only bumped us up in a good credit rating, but again and again and again. Now he's going for a 5th review, putting us in the best place a township can be. So when it comes to leveraging money and bonding, he's been our expert. He's done a great job. I mean, it's outstanding work. I'm glad this is something we all agree with. And he's also been a great teacher to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. As for me, I wholeheartedly agree. Ken has been amazing, especially when he refinanced all our loans just in time and before the rates went up, and we saved a lot of money. So this $200,000 is really cheap for the amount of money he has saved us. So he's been doing a wonderful job, and I hope we can all support. A. Moving to number 9, from the Department of Finance, A through F. Any questions or comments?
Council President?
Council Vice President.
E, through Council President to Chief Bryan, can you explain what traffic calming measures are?
Vice President. So there's a lot of different calming items that we can use. You have the speed humps, the speed bumps. There's a lot of them, depending on where they're placed. There's a whole study that we have to go through in order to facilitate the proper calming device for the area that is going to be installed.
Would that include some of the the flashing lights at pedestrian crossings as well?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We can install those also.
Okay, all right, very good. And speaking of that, thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
The fact that they finally are going to be putting one of those flashing pedestrian crossings over at Old Post and Boulevard of Eagles is a welcome development. That's something that's been long in the making, so I'm really glad that that's going to be taking place. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Anybody else?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman Brescher.
I'm going to go with F. I see we have a bond for $1.4 million, but in the budget we had money that was not accounted for, and I'm wondering, is there a way that that number could be adjusted and using some of our reserves or whatever we have inside that account? That was number 1, and I guess if you can get me an answer for that. For our next meeting, or actually, this is an ordinance, right? So we have actually another set of meetings even after this. The other was the bond ordinance for the $28 million. I'm a little disappointed because I think it was $29 million, and then we cut $5 million out because we're not going to buy the $5 million restaurant like we did the $5 million pond. So I was thinking that this would be $24 million, but now it's $28. And the one item that became a big concern is I've been asking about the paving. And it looks like we put more money into paving, which normally wouldn't be a problem. But like I heard we're tearing up roads again. In fact, I heard Harding's being torn up now. And Harding was torn up. We had an issue, we fixed it, and then it got tore up because another utility came in and it was repaved. And now I hear it's being torn up again.
So if I may, Council President, with regard to Harding, that's FEMA money. So with that, the FEMA money will cover us on the rebuild of the, it had to do with Hurricane Ida. So that's one of the reasons why we have to get in there and get the work done. It's about, I want to say, around $2 million of FEMA money we were able to recover, or 2.5. I can get you the exact amount.
Okay.
You are correct in your assessment with regard to going back and making sure that we are doing the streets that we're not going to go back into and have to rebuild. So our departments, between engineering, DPW, and our utility, we are talking to one another about what the bigger picture. However, the road improvement, we can address an array of issues, and making sure not only are we doing the asphalt, obviously, but the concrete work. We are doing a lot more concrete assessment, making sure that it's done correctly, and then there's proper drainage measures.
Okay, could you just tell me then where the other 2 million went? I didn't get to go through it and compare the two.
Sure.
But so I noticed like an extra 2 million in paving. Then where would the other 2 or 3 million have went?
Under park improvements.
Okay.
And I believe I did break that down with the DPW planning of the various parks and park improvements. There's a detailed Excel sheet to that on the package that I sent over to the council.
Now, did you also, and I didn't see the email, but did you get me a list of all our bonds? And it kind of like you gave them to us the other day, what was allocated for it and what we spent. Did you send that over to me yet or not?
I have probably a few weeks ago when you had requested, but I can just put it at the top of your email.
If you could. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Anybody else? Councilman Patil?
Quite a few questions. The very first question to Council President Sonia, is there a reason that we bundle all these different heads as a one bond? Because you're looking pretty much at a blanket approval from this council. If you have put public safety separately, engineering, another line item, public works, recreation, information technology would have been very helpful rather than making it as a one package and say, hey, give me $30 million, $29 million bond. Is there any reason? Is rational? Are you afraid that one or the other thing will not pass this council and that's why you are forcing this bundling?
Well, this is how typically bond ordinances are done. They do it in one package, especially for bonding purposes. You probably get more bang for your buck doing this way. In my professional experience, I've always done it in one. I do have the individual backup as to the reasoning for the various requests. So if there's a specific request you're looking for clarification, I can certainly pull it up and just explain to you in the public about what that line item means.
Understood that, but again, this is my 9th year on the council. I have only seen this new administration is bundling everything together, 20 million, 30 million, 60 million, and that's my concern. But I understand that your professional experience is a little different than what I have dealt on this council. I have very specific questions here. The public safety, the installation of traffic calming measures, and it does say that Brotherhood, Ethel, Old Post, Boulevard, McKinley, it's a $500,000. But if you look at the average cost, what is the average cost per implementation here?
It's dependent, obviously, on the location. So that's a general assessment that we came up with. Again, with the road improvement funding, that big number, we can certainly allocate some money in the event that it costs more. There are additional areas we want to address for traffic calming measures or general improvements for drainage.
Can I interrupt? Can you please fix the sound?
It is the feedback from that,
Perfect, thank
one,
you.
so I apologize.
Okay. Now, if again on the same line item, if you look at $500,000 and it says with 4 known locations and we are also accounting 3 additional locations. And the comment also says it is based on the PD traffic along with the receipt of numerous complaints and citizen inquiries. On this dais, since 8 months, I'm bringing especially 3 locations continuously. And I can read that. It's in public safety of my discussion line item. Calvert and Grove, we had 3 accidents in last 1 week. Yet that is missing in the entire bond. I don't know why there is a reservation not to put some of these. Again, if the police chief wants to answer that question, the sensitive areas are not highlighted here. And I'm not saying that the ones that are highlighted are not important, they are equally important. But there are 3 additional locations. It is at the discretion and not accounting what the council person is asking, where the traffic data even proves that you need the safety measures on that particular location, yet it is not there. The next location I spoke about was the New Brunswick Avenue. Again, last council meeting I said there are several accidents. PD should go out there, your traffic unit, they should know it. I'm surprised that this location is not again in the list. Again, some of the location I can live with it, but again, this is very important that, we are black and white and we are not at the discretion saying, okay, these are important, but rest we'll figure it out. I need in black and white. Are we going to cover these locations or you're not going to cover these locations? Because those residents are watching this council meeting tonight, and it's very important for me. The next one is the public event management. Is this $300,000? Are these only the equipments we are talking about? Nothing more than that?
So just to further break that down, some of that includes, I would say most of it actually includes for the various public events that are being held that are interchangeable. So there's passenger vans that we're including in there. There's some miscellaneous costs to conducting those events, especially with emergency personnel. Utility vehicles that are required for these large-scale events. As you know, we have some pretty large-scale events, so we want to make sure that we are well prepared with the equipment and the vehicles for those events.
Is there a reasoning that this is not classified under the recreation, which is a primary function of the event, like they do the events all along? Recreation is responsible for the event area. But I see $75,000 for recreation and $300,000 is on the public safety. Again, I'm surprised there. Next one is various drainage projects, $1 million. Again, the same thing. Let me ask this question. Under engineering, how much is the engineering fees versus actual projects in these probably several $1 million?
Sure, if I could just ask Brian to come up, he can tell you the assessment.
I understand these are engineering projects, but I want to understand engineering fees versus actual implementation cost.
Give me 1 second to get to the appropriate page.
Councilman Patil, are you referring to the professional services that we can charge?
Yes.
Okay, when you want to know the difference or how we allocate the
Correct,
percent?
because say for example, if it is $1 million project on drainage, which is shocking to me, that could be in engineering fees, professional fees, and nothing going to get done there. So that's why my question is very specific to those line items.
From a financial perspective, I just want to answer that. We are allowed to charge professional services related to engineering costs to a capital bond ordinance, but he can cover what his.
So the roadways on here and the drainage projects that we have on here, the cost provided of the $250,000 was for the actual construction costs.
On roadways?
For the roadways, yes.
So 250,000 is engineering fees, professional fees?
No, I did not include the professional fees in our request of $250,000.
Because the roadway is $7.5 million in the bond line item.
I'm sorry, are you asking for the resurfacing or the drainage portion only?
No, I'll go step by step. Roadway resurfacing.
Okay, resurfacing. So for the resurfacing, it's $7.5 million of construction costs.
Perfect. And this construction cost is for 2025, correct?
It's, if everything goes well, we can hopefully bid and start construction end of the year, but we typically do the following money this year, pave next year.
Yeah, understood. And that's the reason, this is 2025 spend basically. Drainage projects, let's get back to that. And let me give the history, and you know better than me here. We have spent probably over $5 million on the drainage project, especially in engineering fees, that for the culvert, Summer Street, multiple of those areas, upwards of $5 million. I'm stunned to see $1 million. I don't know what you're going to get here.
So for these projects, in theory, I won't have to go to DEP. So we should be able to perform the majority of this design in-house with some aid of hopefully some survey work, which I believe we were requesting through some of the Section 20 costs.
Perfect. So this is again is more of the professional services, not actual work.
No, this is actual work. The items on here, the roads, Normandy, Peru, Cedarwood, Pearson, when we evaluated those drainage issues, they were within the roadway, but they needed the installation of inlets, catch basins, and piping, which is not typically part of your drainage, part of your resurfacing projects.
But I think, earlier we labeled them as a part of the resurfacing project, olden days. Because when you talk about the drainage projects, it means more of flooding related or any of those major projects. But this looks like if you have a road which needs to be paved and has some drainage issue around that, you are addressing here.
So these actually needed design, which we planned on doing in-house, so we separated them away from the typical resurfacing project.
Perfect. No question for you, but my question is to administration now. This means we are not taking care of culvert, which is more than 5 years. Summer Street, which is more than 3 years we are talking about. I brought to your attention about the J.P. Stevens flooding, because of which the school was shut down for a day. Winding Brook, that was recently brought up. I don't know, are we moving forward with any of those projects, or those are still on the paper, right? We spend $5 million, just shelve them and just take something low end and get those done, and then tag them as the drainage projects.
No, that's, I just correct your statement that we have looked at Calvert, we have looked at Summer. We've put those professional contracts before all of you and were approved, so those are in the works.
Calvert and Abbott,
Yeah.
I believe is the Calvert one you're referring to. That's actually in Collier's hands right now and going through design to go to DEP and get approval.
I thought the designs were all done 3-4 years ago.
They were designed to a point to get the easements so they can go to DEP and get the DEP approval. Since then, DEP requirements have changed, and I want to say back in March, council approved the contracts for Colliers to continue the design and go to DEP for Calvert.
Okay, in short, in this bond, none of those projects are being covered. That's just want to make it clear.
They are covered in other bond ordinances.
But I have heard that it's only the design, not actual work.
For the Calvert and Abbott, no, we don't expect the design for Calvert and Abbott, if everything goes well, wouldn't be ready until
The next bond ordinance.
Correct.
So it may take some time to get that design working. So with the DEP, sometimes it takes a year to get their approvals, and that's always our concern, is that rather than going to this body and putting in a full bond ordinance for something that we don't know when it's going to happen, we are prepared, though, financially to do all of the design work.
Understood. That's a 6 years old project. I'm surprised that, it is still in the design phase, but that's for the next discussion. Let me talk about Amboy Avenue streetscape improvement. Again, this is $1.5 million is actual implementation. You'll be done with all the sidewalks on the entire Amboy Avenue. I just want to make it clear.
What was, I'm sorry, can you repeat
The
your
Amboy
question?
Avenue
With regard
resurfacing?
to-
It says resurfacing, crosswalks, sidewalks, streetscape, many more things, right? So my question is, we will be covering the sidewalk of entire Amber Avenue street?
So upon adoption of this ordinance, let's say this is an introduction, and then once we adopt the bond ordinance and we have that 20-day estoppel, our engineering team could then design the work, or we could do it in-house, or we could do it externally to do all of what is listed here. So let's say in from a time perspective, I would say we'd go out to bid maybe in August, September, and the work probably wouldn't start to the following spring. So is that your question?
My question is a little tricky. I'm very clearly asking, are we going to put the sidewalk on the entire Amboy Avenue? Have we taken even the permissions from the businesses? Have we discussed with the homeowners? Because there is a right of way, and that's the reason I'm saying.
Well, that'll be part of all of the design work and the due diligence. There's a due diligence that we have to get done through that. So we're estimating what the cost looks like for the entire
Okay, so we are putting the cart before the horse. We don't know, is that going to happen if you don't get the permission from the business owner?
Well, that's our right of way, so that we don't have to get any permission for that. And correct me if I'm wrong with the attorney regarding our own sidewalks.
I just need on the official statement saying, are we going to put the sidewalk across the entire Amboy Avenue? We can do our due diligence, design, that's perfectly fine. We can, they are in the right of way. As long as we can do it and it is here, I just want to make it sure that that's what the intent is and we're not going to do the patchwork.
No, no, it's an entire.
I will have the counselor explain.
So the business administrator can't really answer that until the design work is done. I know you want an assurance that the sidewalks will be put in along the entire way, but until the design work is done, it's not possible to know whether there are any issues with putting the sidewalks in the entire way, such as acquisition issues, property owners who don't want to cooperate. There might be eminent domain that has to be done in order to complete the project. All of those are potential issues that have to be handled in the design phase so that the township can advance. And the township can't start negotiating with property owners until they actually have the approval to do so and the funding to do so. Otherwise, they're not negotiating in good faith. So that's why she can't answer you directly, is there going to be a sidewalk?
And that's the reason I use the word, we are putting the cart before the horse. Why you were, putting $1.5 million when there are so many unknowns that we don't know?
Just reiterate what the counselor said. We can't go to negotiate until we have the design, like once we have the funding approved. So we're not putting cart before the horse. We're just taking the next steps, right?
It's not a next step. We haven't done design at all. My ask would be do the design, negotiate, and then say it's going to cost me X dollar, come back here and get disapproved.
I think these are just the estimates, and then they'll come back to us, right? If I'm not, yeah. So these are just estimates. We approve it. They do the design work, and then they come back and with more final numbers, and then we get to approve it again.
I know, I understand that, but why there is a rush to put $1.5 million? We can always go back and put the bond in front of this council.
But again, I think
it's an estimate, right? Estimate to do the work without doing the homework. That's my question here.
This is essentially authorizing a vision that this is something we want. And once we agree with that vision, then they can move forward and work on that vision to make it a reality. So I understand we can't necessarily say 100% that this is the vision we'll end up with, but this is the start. So I hope you agree and support the vision.
No, with this start, we have spent probably close to $60 million, not spent, but we have bonded $60 million, and I will need to really start thinking, do we really need this bond to include this line item today? But if the vision is there and the commitment from this council is there, I'm perfectly fine. I'm not denying on that. The question there is 1.5 is way low less money for that entire Amboy Avenue, sidewalk, striping, signage. Again, I'm just telling you that the estimation, whoever has done it, I don't know, they have given too much of thought, but I will leave it there. My next one is park renovation and repairs, $6.2 million. Do we know how much money we bonded for the park and recreation in 2022, 2023, and how much we spent out of that, the earlier bonds?
Sure, I did provide the reports to the council. I can resend them. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I
Is it
can certainly
exhausted?
recirculate it.
Is it exhausted? Did we
Has it
exhaust?
been exhausted? Yes, it has.
Okay. So this $6.2 million is without the matching funds from county. Typically, we should get the matching fund for park improvement.
We don't typically match funds necessarily. We can ask for additional funding.
I think, we need to go back to our history here before 2022. We always have asked the matching fund from the county. And most of the time we have received this, and based on that, we have bonded the money. But again, I will leave it to your research if you can do that. Anything before 2022, we used to get the money. $6.2 million is the renovation of the parks, right?
Yes, sir.
My question goes back there. You don't have the number, but Wednesday, if you can come back with the number in 2022, 2023, how much money we spent on the park renovation, and if there is any money left there. And I'm really disappointed with $75,000 for recreation, but other than that, I'm good. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Anybody else with any questions?
Council President,
Councilman Pointer.
if it's possible to ask the engineer a question in regards to the Amboy Avenue portion of the ordinance?
That should be fine. Brian, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Brian. One of the issues on Amboy pertains to the drainage, but I know we previously approved for design concept to address drainage at MacArthur Drive.
Correct.
Will that address the pooling that Amboy Avenue currently faces?
The McCarthy Avenue drainage work is just on McCarthy.
Okay. Would other public improvements that is specified here include any drainage improvements on Amboy Avenue? And I can give you a specific location. So if you're going, I guess it's westbound, past the turnpike, you get to the three-story building that's at the corner, pretty much at Pleasant Avenue. From Pleasant to Waltuma, Waltuma to 7th. There ends up being a significant amount of pooling there where the water just will end up sitting for a day or so. My concern in those areas is that if that pooling were to remain and we were to do those improvements, that would have a negative impact of the work that is to be proposed. So I'm not against the ordinance, but it's just something of consideration because if we're going to have that drainage issue, I wouldn't want that to affect any of the work that we do. Oh, sorry.
I completely understand. So, with the funding, what I would probably want to do and with our engineering team is potentially do an overall study. I may bring, call the DCA with regard to, they have design teams that do these streetscaping projects and that do address those issues alongside of making it look pretty, but also making it functional and well-lit space. So we just need the funding in order to do our due diligence part of it. Bringing up the fact that there's some drainage concerns, I think we need to make sure that we look into that as part of our due diligence is the draining issue. And we do have funding, obviously, in other areas, so we want to make sure that when we embark on that project that we are looking at the drainage, and I would propose that we do that and look at bigger picture and potentially what we could do with DCA to get a better vision, if you will. They call it a vision.
I understand. And I can share with you photos and videos that I have of previous instances of pooling. So that would
be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you,
Brian.
Councilman Pointer. Thank you, Brian.
Sonia. And thank you, Councilman.
All right, and anybody else with any questions?
Council President,
Councilman Coyle?
First, I'm happy with a lot of things that are here for public safety in different departments. But for the 1.8 for Amboy Avenue, could the BA just walk me through, is that including pavers? Because there was a point where we're at over 4 million for pavers and improvements, and now it's at 1.8. And is this to the counselor, is this number fixed or can it be moved? What's the bond, for the bond? What timing can we move the number up or down for the,
Once you
what's in the
approve
bond?
the individual expenditures within the bond ordinance. I'm not bond counsel, but my understanding is no, that there's little wiggle room. Correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a more complicated answer than that, but the short answer is no.
I can go offline with it, but I thought at one time we were considering 4 million plus, now we're at 1.8 million. I just don't know if that's enough to cover, and I can have a separate meeting with DPW to see what is calculated in the pavers. But I did see irrigation, which is great, and good opportunity. So for those who are here from Claire Barton, I think that's a helpful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Seeing no one else, we're going to move on to number 10 from the Department of Health. A, any questions or comments?
Council President,
Councilman
just
Porter.
a brief comment. I think it's, I know it's a requirement because it's from the DOT, but I think it's a great requirement. One of the facts that is in the backup documents is that based on the last census, 18% of the Edison population, they have classified as LEP, which is limited English proficiency. So this requirement to ensure that the information that we provide is offered in those different languages is of absolute benefit to the citizenry of the township, and I'm happy that we're doing it. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer, and I wholeheartedly agree. There are many residents of the town that do not speak English as their first language, and it would be better if we can communicate with the language that they understand. Moving on to number 11, from the Departments of Planning and Engineering, A through I. Any questions or comments?
Council President.
Councilman Brescher?
H, I guess I'm still going to look into. This is a change order on a change order, correct? So we issued a change order, and then this is an additional change order to that same change order? Oh, okay. H.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it. So
Okay, that was
this-
a- that
This is
was
not
a-
a change order to a change order. This is an additional change order.
And what is this change order for?
For H, this is for remediation. So there was additional remediation that was required.
Okay, so wait. Okay, did we give a change order to remove an oil tank with contaminated soil?
So let me go back to the timeline and how we got to this point. So in 2019, there was a permit that wasn't closed out correctly. And what this corrects is that issue, including the remediation.
Okay, but, so we didn't give them a change order to remediate this before, prior to this?
Prior to this, right. So this administration is correcting the issue of making sure the permits are closed out and the remediation is done correctly in order for us to get into the building to perform the construction.
To ask a question, maybe if the engineer could come up, because I have questions on to, like, how do we determine the cost of change orders?
Brian, if you don't mind.
They're based off of a percentage, but Brian can cover you on that.
Evening, Councilman.
Good evening. I'm going to be as nice as I can. But I do have questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Being an engineer, when you're designing something, I don't care what your design entails, whether it's water flowing or blacktop pavement, your estimates that you would normally give would be in units of some sort of measurement. Would that be correct, or do you just out of thin air?
The way I typically do them is by line item.
By line item, right. So there's basically an estimate that's created. Went back to the prior thing with my council colleague where he was talking about the cart and a horse thing, right? Like typically a design would be done. You would then quantify that with numbers, right? Based upon units or of linear footage or square footage or tonnage. And then at the end, you come up with what we would call an engineer's estimate.
Correct.
Which typically can be off compared to what a bid would be, right? And I guess we understand that. But you're somewhere in the ballpark, right? Like normally you wouldn't estimate at $1 million and it comes in at 10 million or something to that effect.
Typically not, no, sir.
Okay, so for this change order, can we get a breakdown with numbers, right? That talks about like tonnage or yardage of material that was remediated and that, can we get that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We can provide that back up for probably by noon tomorrow.
Okay, I appreciate that on that one. My next one goes to I, which is, you know, we have everybody here in the audience for that one that came tonight. And I appreciate the documentation that I have received so far. Okay, I have not received all of the documentation, and some of that I think is pertinent to making decisions.
Okay.
But I just want to go through. There's, and tell me if I'm using the word incorrectly. Is it called ComCheck? Is that when you talk about the
energy
thermal
efficiency.
qualities? Correct.
Yes.
I'm waiting on those documents, and I don't know why I haven't received them, because those would have to be approved before you start building, correct?
Correct. So I am waiting to get the actual documents from the architect at this point.
Okay, well now, okay, let's go back. I asked for this, does anybody know what day that was? Was that Thursday or Friday? So is there a reason why that architect could not have gotten the council person, right, the requested information, but the mayor can make sure that he gets all the families and children's down here? But he couldn't make that call to his architect that did his campaign for him, right? And get that document for a sitting councilman? Is there a reason why I can't get this?
Councilman, if I
Yes.
may. We are having issues with one of the professionals, and I don't want to get too much into it because there's potential issues with that. Our issue of bringing up this change order is to move the project along. We are going to deal and have been dealing with the attorney separately on the issues that you're mentioning. I don't necessarily want to, or again, I'll refer to counsel regarding potential legal issues.
Okay, so let me make it simpler. Where does this energy comm thing, who applies for this? The architect, right? And then he would end up sending that to who to get approved?
So my understanding and
Before you answer, Brian, does this apply to this change order, this COM thing? Because I'm not sure.
the inability to meet the ComCheck is one of the reasons for the change order.
Okay, and what exactly, to enlighten me, what exactly happened between
the bid and now?
Yeah.
I'll explain it the best I can, not being an architect. What was specified in the plans was for a purling bearing roof instead of a standing seam roof.
Well, Council President, if you would just let me entertain this. I read, and I'll tell you why, and I sent this to the BA. I was hoping that she would send this to you, but I just want to read. I want to read it. I mean, I took a picture of it. It's been a while since I texted you, Sonia. Let's see, here it is. Specifications. The specifications that were written on 5/19/23, right? It says the finished warranty period, 25 years from date of substantial completion. Special weather tightness warranty for standing seam metal roof panels. Manufacturer agrees to repair, replace with a warranty of 20 years. So that calls in the specifications for a standing seam roof.
There are two sections talking about metal roofs. There is a lower roof, which is a standing seam roof that was specified in the portion of the specifications where it talks about the pre-engineered metal building. It specifically calls out a PBR or purling bearing roof, and that's where the contradiction is.
Okay, well, here's another one. Basis of design is progress, double lock standing seam roof panels. Now, those are pretty simple. That's not where I'm seeing any of this, of which what I received in my packet in the explanation was something that's called like through fastened.
That's the PBR roof.
Right, through fastened. But I didn't see anything about saying that it should be through fastened in the specifications. All I see in the specifications are that it calls for a standing seam. They talk about clips. They talk about the insulation, and the insulation that they're calling for could not be done if you screwed it down directly. So I'm wondering, like, how I'm a little confused here, right? So the energy thing I'm looking for, because that's a component. If that was missed at the beginning, then that would be on the architect. But just in looking at the specifications, you know, what I see here is a standing seam roof, which is the extra of what we're paying for. Okay, and then I'm giving you this because I'd really like you to get back to me with this information tomorrow. And then there's another aspect to it. I looked, and in the breakdown that I received, that metal building, the steel columns that hold up the whole building, right? Everything that's steel in their components, including the siding and the roofing, they had listed as being worth, I think it was $1.2 million to purchase in, I'm going to say it was their AIA maybe payment schedule.
Okay.
But then I just read another document that said it's $600,000. So I'm wondering what that disparity was between those two from Epic and from what was showed in the original. Because one is $600,000 and one is $1.2 million, right? But now here's where it gets really good. Forget about if the $600,000 is right. Let's say it's the $1.2 million. Right now, the only thing we're doing is we're changing a metal roof to a metal roof, and that's $200,000 extra. So this is where I go when I talk about quantifying things, right? And I asked for this from the administration, right? I asked for a breakdown.
Right.
And I didn't get a breakdown. So you, being an engineer, right? You always quantify your things because you're an engineer. Architects will quantify their things as an engineer. But we have a change order that's recommended by this body to approve with absolutely no breakdown. All we have is a contractor saying it costs X amount of dollars more. What's the difference between $175,000, $200,000, or $2.8 million when you can't quantify it? So if the contractor's unwilling to quantify this, right, you being our engineer, I'm saying then that should fall on you. And then you can then bill, we could bill the contractor for that later on, but how can anybody sitting up here without having the quantities to go through? Do we know that it's worth $175,000 without having those numbers? Would you know? Would you bet your salary on it? Or
Sir, I am not an architect. That is not in my purview of my license. That is in the purview of an architect, and I would have to go back to the architect for that answer.
Okay, do we have another architect? Do we have anybody that can quantify?
We are working on that, and like I said, I don't want to get into too much of the issues we're dealing with the architect because of potential legal issues we're dealing with. So we, in fact, are getting another architect to look at this. In the meantime, the way it's presented before the council tonight is that in order for us to do any other part of the building, the anchors, the walls, everything else, we need to make sure that the roofing material is ordered, is done correctly. And Brian, having stepped into this position to oversee the project, is in full agreement of making sure that this gets done the right way. And we're in support of that, and I hope that you are all. I don't want to necessarily, and I completely understand your position. You have concerns, legitimate concerns. We will get you what we can. I did provide what I could from the actual contractor regarding the AI and what the weatherproofing means and that cost. We're going to get you the schedule as to what we are able to provide, but the schedule is also dependent on this change order.
Well, okay, no, okay, when we get to the schedule, right, because the job should have had a schedule to begin with, okay, from day one.
We have a notice to proceed.
That, from the day one, you should have gotten a breakdown of an entire schedule. And then that gets updated at every meeting, any meeting that I've ever seen, okay? Even when people work on somebody's home in their bathroom, they give them a schedule. So not to have that is concerning for the architect, the contractor, and the administration. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to ask for this. We should have this. And I hear now that there's some other kind of issues, but something like this kind of needs to be worked out. And you should be able to verify to me that these roofing panels should cost X, and the new ones installed with the clips would typically be Y. And just so you know, I also called Butler, and they would be a good avenue for you maybe to reach out to and get a cost, because Butler will give you a cost for the one way, and they'll give you a cost upgrade for the other.
Is that a contractor?
Butler makes metal PEM. They make the same.
yeah.
Right. In fact, I don't even know who you're using. You actually might be using Butler.
I don't believe we are.
I believe the contractor is using Borelli.
Okay. All right. So, right, there's, they're kind of the same, but you can reach out and get actual numbers from them. And I'd really like to have this before we get to the meeting. I'd like all these people here to know that, we want to move ahead with everything. But I want them to know that we're also kind of watching it all. We just can't afford to go out and just approve thousands and thousands each, which we see, right? And we don't have a construction manager on site. Of which we all talked about, right? And we had numbers, and a lot of this would have been vetted. And when I talk about the meeting minutes were critical. And the reason why I've been asking about meeting minutes for months is a lot of these things could have been avoided, let's say. Just myself and reading the meeting minutes, if I would have gotten the meeting minutes when I asked, right? The ones that nobody knew where they were. I could have given you the concerns that are still out there with all these things. And then you being the administration, you could do with that knowledge whatever you wanted. You could have done something and be proactive, or you could have done nothing. And there are some things that I do see in the future meeting minutes that I think you guys should be a little bit more proactive on in getting the contractors and them out there. I'll put the list together for you. I just started reading them. I just got them, right? So. That would be it, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Anybody else?
Council President.
Councilman Patel?
The question on H is the multiple time, we received a change order. This is the 4. What is our net square feet cost as of today? What is this costing us, the Toth Center?
Square foot cost?
Yes, square foot cost.
I would have to go do the math and get back to you on that. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you know what is the footprint? Like, what's the total area, roughly?
Not off the top of my head, no, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'll wait for Wednesday. The next one is the change order. Again, we need to move, again, this is something that we need to, approve. This council will approve, if everyone agrees. My question here is, will this be billed to the insurance company, through the insurance company?
Again, without going into too much of the legal issues that we're dealing with, we are trying to take several various routes that we're able to, whether it's through the insurance and through our attorneys. So we've had those conversations.
Okay, let me ask the other round. Are we anticipating this money back to the township, whatever the means it is, whether it's a lawsuit, whether it's insurance, whatever is the mean? Are we anticipating that?
We are trying to recoup that funding, yes.
Perfect. And do we know how this will be classified once we receive that money? Will it go in surplus? Will it go in regular expenses? The reason I'm asking is, if this body approves for this project, which should, if we get that offset, we shouldn't be putting that in the regular spending budget. Otherwise, indirectly, we are giving you $180,000, $187,000 to spend somewhere else. So how this will be classified if at all we get this money back?
It would go back into the budget, probably under miscellaneous revenue or something to that effect, or into surplus. However it works out, I usually depend on our finance people to make sure that there's a allocation for it that helps us to balance the budget.
Okay, the reason I'm saying is on the record that we don't want this to be an avenue to, move the money around and inflate the budget, because this is one-time expense and it should not surface as a part of the budget. That's the reason I asked about the classification. That's it. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Anybody else would like to make a comment?
Council President,
Councilman Coyle.
I'm just, I'm thankful of the council and Brescia hearing his comments, but I'm also excited to do a lot of things for the sports teams that we haven't done in a long time. So when it comes to something like that's on the agenda and we're in place to move forward, it's just time. And when I look back at all the things we've never done over the last 30 years, and as we compare it to other towns like Woodbridge, Metuchen, and different areas around the central Jersey state, we're way behind times. So, and when I look at the cost of supplies, cost of what labor is and interest, and if you add that up, sometimes you have to move when the iron's hot. And I think Mr. Brescher's questions are critical, and I think we'll get those answers. But this is truly important as we move forward. When there's a change order, it happens. I mean, there are a lot of things in life, no matter what we do in our home, whether it's in our kitchen, doing expansion on a dormer, there's always an issue where we spend a little more money. And nobody's happy about that. And I'm sure the residents of Edison want to hear why. But when you look at how we did move forward across 30 years now, how I sat here and watched it, nothing happened. As we just sat in the mud and nothing happened. So today I'm just truly proud as this administration's moving forward. And when it comes to sports, they deserve it. If it's another 180,000, I'm for it. If it costs 225,000, I'm for it. They've waited long enough, and this is going to be an unbelievable opportunity to combine all sports underneath one roof. And I get several phone calls where certain teams don't even know where they're playing during the week. Some are waiting during the week schedule on a Monday where they're practicing on Wednesday. Your average parent today doesn't even know where they're going to practice and doesn't have a full schedule to make up their week of what they're doing because of this facility not completed and for what we never had before. So I'm looking forward to how, this town finally moves in a direction we haven't moved in a long time. I'm not going to ask you any questions, so you're able to sit down if you want. I'm sorry. But and thank you for all you do and your hard work. But, Council President, I hope this council comes together to see, the impact on sports and the people who showed up here today, and regardless of who or why they show up to everything. I mean, they're out there all the time, spending their days and afternoons and evenings and cooking, and it's constant. It's something I have to start taking a role in because I have 3 grandkids. And I'm looking forward to it, and then I'm not looking forward to it because I know Boz will have me in that kitchen working. And I thought I was retired. So I thank you for the time you put into this. I'm looking forward to this coming together, and it's been decades of nothing getting done in Edison. So congratulations, Council, for all that's happening in the last 2.5 years.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Anybody else?
Council President.
Councilman Pointer.
Couple of clarification questions, if I can. First, in regards to item H, I do understand what Councilman Brescher was previously asking about in regards to whether this is a change order on top of a change order. The previous change order, they had the limitation of up to, I think it was like 100 tons of removal. So that was the initial change order that we had, and this is additional, presuming fill that they had to remove and replace. But need to get clarification, as you said, in regards to the units of measurement, so to say. One question in regards to H. There's an item in here that says the contract will be changed by 60 days, but then in their statement to us, it had a contract to be extended by TBD. Which is the item that would be bound? And I ask this because in normal change orders, you have the time extension for it, and that would get you your new end date.
So the TBD, and I had the same, actually, good question. I had the same question, why was it TBD? I don't necessarily want to commit to that. And the reason it is because we don't know what the findings will be. So that's why there's a TBD. We are getting regular reports. We feel good about them. So we're hoping that once we get the change order done and get the work done, we can provide you at the next council meeting with an actual date of when that work would be completed.
Okay, so right now is under TBD, even though the change order form that we have says 60 days.
Correct.
Okay. In regards to item I, considering the potential actions from the township, I look at this, not simply is not the right word, but there's two ways to how I view this. The ComCheck insulate energy level that is supposed to be required, it clearly states on the drawings that was done, it should meet those standards. So whether it is on the architect that messed up in the calculations, whether it is the builder for not providing the right spec, whichever way, I believe that these funds are recoupable. That does not mean that I believe that the project should be delayed, but I just wanted to point out that I see those items in regards to the backup and should be noted. So, thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Pointer. Councilor
President.
Small?
I just want to say that people of Edison should be very proud of how hard this council is working. Richard Brescher asking the right questions, and I hope that you get. I hope you get your answers. But I feel that we need to move this project forward because whatever the change orders are, delays cost a lot more money than change orders. So look at what the change orders are, and I hope you're whole with it. And if we can move it forward as fast as we can, so we can build this building, that'd be beneficial for us.
Thank you, Councilman Shmuel. As for myself, I did have some question for the engineer. Brian, if you don't mind, I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry to get you up again. But can you walk me through exactly what happened, what the situation is? And second question is, if we don't pass this, what happens? And I think let's start with that, and then let's see if I have more questions after.
Okay, so the way the specifications were written, it requests or it specifies a purling bearing roof with providing, I forget if it's 4 or 5 vendors off the top of my head, who can provide that roof to meet the specifications. The specifications, while calling out for the purling bearing roof, also call out the need for I believe it's a 20-year water tightness warranty, which after reaching out to multiple vendors, none of the, I forget if it's 4 or 5 vendors, could provide that 20-year water tightness warranty. The only roof we were able to provide, we were able to have those vendors come back with was the standing seam roof, which was actually specified on another portion of the building. Okay. If we don't move forward with the change order, we will either have to live with a roof that can't be warranted as watertight beyond 1 year, cannot meet the ComChecks for thermal efficiency. The only way my understanding, and please forgive me if I'm saying it wrong because I'm not an architect, I'm trying to relay his message, was if a thermal break was put in, a layer of insulation is put in between the roofing panels and the purlins. Once again, those vendors that we had reached out to, our professionals had reached out to, would not provide the PBR roofing system with the additional thermal break in there because their fastener, they wouldn't warranty the fasteners or that form of construction.
Okay, so I keep hearing that the insurance might be able to pay this. Can we wait for that? How long would that be, or would you not know?
I would not
That'd be
know.
a question for Sonia.
I mean, that's a timeline that we can't predict.
Okay.
Going through insurance, I mean, that could be several months, if not years, especially if we tie in litigation. So it's.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as for me, I personally think this is around 1% change to the whole project. And I really like this project, and I want this project for our kids, and it's important that we get this project done. And now if it ensures that we have a warranty that this won't leak for 20 years, I like that safety. And I like knowing that, kids won't be putting buckets at specific locations to make sure that, they dance around it. And at 1%, I'm okay with this change. I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So I hope the rest of the council agrees with me and supports this comes Wednesday. And Councilman Brescher, I hope you get all the answers, because I know you're in construction business, and you definitely know a lot more than this. A lot of this stuff went over my head, so I'm glad you're here, and I hope we can use your knowledge. But I do hope that you can support this at 1%. I think it's a good safety net to have for 20 years. But that's it for me. Moving on to number 12 from the
Excuse me,
Department
Council
of...
President? I just want to have a word about this. Really good questions have been asked about this project, and I'm so grateful to all the parents and the families who have come out here advocating for it. I roll my eyes at the change orders that we go through. There are an awful lot of them. But this one, I think, as Council President has pointed out, is really part of the expression, a drop in the bucket when we're talking about leaky roofs. This one is a drop in the bucket, and these people have been waiting a long time to get this thing going, and so I'm in favor of it. This is a change order that I think is very well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President.
I just want to clarify.
We can...
No, what you just said.
We can discuss. I just want to move on. I don't want to keep discussing this point, because then I want to say something.
Wait, no.
We can discuss offline, I promise.
No, but wait, can I then bring that up in my discussion item? And I'll comment? It was on this stuff. It's on my discussion items.
Look, I don't want to continue this, but you can talk about it on Wednesday. Fair?
Okay, when?
When we vote on it before. Maybe
okay.
not. Actually, we don't really talk about it. Okay, you know what? I'll open it up. We do comment on it, really, so you can comment on it then.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, all right. Moving on to number 12, from the Departments of Public Works. A and B, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, moving on to number 13, from the Department of Recreation, A through C. Any questions or comments? Moving on to number 14, from the Chief of Police, A. Any questions or comments?
Council President?
Councilman Brescher.
Yes, I guess these are 12 vehicles we need for $500,000. And normally, I mean, I don't think I've ever questioned the need for vehicles, but over the last few weeks, I've watched, I don't know, 10s, 20s, 30s, vehicles all over Edison, parked without anybody in them. I'm going to get to that, my security thing. But if we need these additional vehicles, are these going to be manned vehicles, or are these going to be just like the show vehicles that we park?
Sure, Council President.
Chief.
Good evening, Councilman. No, they're not show vehicles. They're replacing vehicles that were damaged and that are being sunset. So they're all going to patrol to be utilized, the 12 Explorers.
Actually, I hope the officer today is doing well. I drove by an accident today.
I appreciate you asking. Thanks. He is doing well. They're both doing well.
Good. Okay.
But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Actually, I had one more question on it with the chief. Is this going to be hybrid by any chance? No. Okay. Never mind. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that, we are going out for auction, surplus auction, and some of that stuff is vehicles. So although from a monetary perspective, they're not huge, we do get something back. We get some of those costs recouped for vehicles that we put out to auction.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
That would be it.
Okay. Number 15, from the Township Clerk, A and B. Any questions or comments?
Council President?
Councilman Patil?
On B, is this a new license?
Yes, it'll be a new license, new auction license.
So what will be our license count once this is sold?
This is the last one.
This will be the last one. We'll
Like,
be at
what's the count?
capacity based on,
What's the total number of
What's the
capacity?
number?
this will be number 14.
14? And in last 2 years, do we know how many we sold complete? in
Well,
total?
distribution, I believe we sold 2 last year.
Okay. And this year, this will be 1.
This would be 1, yep.
So total 3 in 2 years. Okay, thank you.
And question for Sonia. Do we expect similar numbers that we got last time? Because I know there was some change in the state law that allows the licensing to go abroad, right? Yeah, so I think we might get a lower number or a higher number. I don't know.
We're anticipating a high number, so, you know.
Okay, all right, well, we'll see. Moving on to.
President?
Yes, Councilman Point.
Just one clarification and one question. The clarification, my understanding with the new law is that while you can transfer the licenses, they have to be contingent to your municipality. So that does put somewhat of a limitation as to what can actually be transferred over. The question that I have to Sonia, if I could, right now in the budget, this is not accounted for towards our revenue source.
It is not. You're
So
correct.
presumably then that would be put into surplus going into next year.
Exactly. We could put that into our budget in anticipation of that.
That's it. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. I'm going to point to you now for number 16 from the council member of the planning board.
Thank you, Council President. I do apologize. I don't have a formal report, but it was a short meeting, so I'm just going to spearhead. The planning board had its monthly May meeting on Monday, May 13th at 7 p.m. here in council chambers with the following items discussed. First was the approval of minutes, followed by approval of resolutions, which included first, Garden State Buildings, LP P09-2023, extension of a minor subdivision approval. Second was ordinance number 02213, amending the sign regulation for the billboards. 3, amendment to the redevelopment plan of 1000 Inman Avenue, and 4, redevelopment plan John Street and Thomas Place. These were just resolutions solidifying the actions done by the planning board. The vote on the master plan was carried to June 17th, 2024. That is the next planning board meeting here at council chambers, which will be at 7 p.m. Under old business, first was PO 6-2023, Your Way Construction LLC. Applicant was seeking preliminary and final site plan approval to construct a commercial structure used for storage of construction materials and equipment. This was previously heard at a other meeting where there were questions brought up about the types of vehicle maintenance that would occur. That was corrected and situated, and eventually the board found it acceptable motion to approve, and it was approved. Under new business, case PO2-2024, Blueberry Village Incorporated was carried, and I forget if it was for the next meeting or not. I believe it was. Case P22-2022, Just Nation, likewise, that was also carried to the next meeting. And finally, there was case P5254, Kimar Developers LLC, 70 Revere Boulevard. Applicant was seeking minor subdivision approval with no variances. This was approved. The next meeting, as I said, is Monday, June 17th, 2024, 7 p.m. here in council chambers. And again, the master plan is figured to be voted on then. Thank you, Council Vice President.
Thank you. Actually, Councilman Pointer, a question about follow-up on the Mason and Clive property, the old Lucille Ball house, so to speak. Anything happening there?
I don't have an update, but the last correspondence that I had with the administrator, Hank's waiting if I might bring him up.
The applicant received minor subdivision approval, and as part of his approval, there were several conditions of approval. One was that they were supposed to create an easement for the property that's the wetlands in the front of the one property. That easement was prepared by the applicant's attorney. It went to the planning board attorney. I believe he approved it. It went to the township attorney. They had issues, and that's where it stands right now. So it has not been approved yet. So they haven't met all the conditions of approval. They are entitled to build one house so far on the property. So if you see construction, they tore down the Lucille Ball property, quote unquote, but they were allowed to build one house so far.
So do I recall correctly that it will be one of the houses that has the domain over the pond,
Yeah, if you look at the
initial pond?
property and just look straight in, the subdivision line be straight down. So the property to the right on the corner will have that wetland area in its front yard. And they were supposed to create an easement so that they couldn't touch that. The easement, there's case law now that from the Supreme Court that says that the wetlands law has to be titled or has to be tied to a tributary in the 49 states. In New Jersey, it hasn't caught up yet. So the owner of the property is looking at it like, well, I'll give you the easement, but I want to be able to take the property back if the wetland law changes in New Jersey and he's allowed to build on that property. The values of properties in Edison are so valuable that that's the concern.
Wow, okay, thank you so much.
All right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on to ordinances. Number 17, unfinished businesses. Let's start with ordinance 2217. Any questions or comments? All right, moving on to ordinance 2218. Any questions or comments? Ordinance 2219. Any questions or comments? Ordinance 2222. Any questions or comments? Ordinance 2223. Any questions?
Yes, Council President. I'm all in favor of this as being an electric vehicle owner myself. My question is, what is the anticipated impact on the electric grid here with the possibility of all of these charging stations being built?
So this will, I think this is,
So this change is what's mandated by the state statute to be included? Yeah. This change is what's mandated by the state statute to be included in the municipal ordinance. That's what I can answer from the legal side. I don't know that there's been any kind of study conducted on what the impact of these have been since the statute went into effect in, Mr. Pointer left, I think it was 2021.
this essentially changes the laws as to how many credits they get, right, toward the parking?
Yeah, that's what this covers. It
So
covers.
this does not necessarily have to do with the grid. It's more of before when an applicant would come in, they can say, hey, you are short 10 parking lots, parking spots based on your use needs. So they can say, hey, I'm going to install 5 parking spots here to reduce essentially they count as 2. So they're like, okay, we got the covered. And then they don't have to ask for a variance. With this, we are limiting how many of those they can do because it was essentially unlimited prior.
Yeah, the way that it was written before, there wasn't any kind of real limit on it, and it was missing some of the more important language from the actual statute itself, because Edison had changed their statute, and then like a month and a half later, the state came out with a new statute that said, oh, by the way, we have these other changes, and it was just never updated to reflect those. So, but again, the actual question that you asked about the impact on the grid, that's not something that would have been covered by this ordinance, but also doesn't impact the fact that the township needs to adopt this ordinance. I don't know if engineering or if the business administrator is aware of any studies that have been done recently or sometime in the last 2 years, but it's.
That does bring up a good question, but I think we'll take it offline for
Yep,
me.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, anybody else? All right, moving on to discussion items. Councilman Brusher.
Calvert and Grove. I think we're going down a bad road with Calvert and Grove. And when I say a bad road, it's just to add another light in the township. Every time we add a light, I believe it's like I'm moving one step closer to one of my cities. And I still don't want to give up on Edison as a city. Has anybody in our public safety looked at this intersection at either maybe closing off one of the sides of Calvert or making it a no turn so people can't do that little zigzaggy wiggle thing, which seems to cause all the issues that we have? I know that when I was growing up, Livingston was blocked off, where you didn't have access to go through Livingston. And, the thought was it would cut down on traffic. Subsequently, I moved back to Edison, and Livingston was opened. And it's kind of a freeway. We give out tickets, actually, on Livingston. But on the Calvert and Grove, has anybody thought about maybe just closing off one end of Calvert so that you can't continue to go through?
I don't believe that that issue was proposed, or your solution rather. I don't think that our traffic, between our traffic unit, our engineers, that would be the traffic signal is what we are proposing to do, is the safest measure, if you will.
Well, I get the traffic signal because we put them up all over. And then what happens is, and I tell everybody the same story, a lot of people up on this dais haven't lived in this town as long as I have. Every time you put up a traffic signal, I drive through someone else's neighborhood to avoid the traffic signal. It's human nature, and everybody does it. So traffic signals, I don't think actually are working. So that's why I'm proposing something different. Okay, I'd like to see Edison as a rural town, not as a city, and I'm not really looking to go down that road to make it worse. I know that when we had, I think it was June Choi, he tried making it like that, and now we have our new mayor, much like June Choi, right? We're heading towards more of an urban type of feel. Next, I have a question, is our chief here? Just a quick question about smoke detectors and really the importance of them in homes. Being that it's spring this time of year, right? I think they tell you something like spring or fall, right?
Yes.
We're supposed to be doing something
Spring
like
ahead, fall back, usually change batteries.
right?
Yeah,
The battery
it's a
thing.
good reminder, yeah.
But that's one of the top things that a homeowner can do, or anyone can do, right, is to make sure that your smoke alarm systems are actually functioning.
Correct. Yes.
Not only to save your life, but even to save your property.
Absolutely.
So I'm just kind of putting that little reminder out there that we are at spring. Smoke detectors are important to make sure that they're all functioning properly. So it saves lives. So I'd like to ask everybody to just pay attention to that one. Thank you.
Now you're welcome.
Graffiti, I'll come back to. Amazon, I still haven't gotten anything, a contact for Amazon, someone that would actually answer the phone and call back. But I'm waiting to see the next donation we get from someone. And whoever gave us a donation, I'd like their number, and I'm going to get on them about getting me a number for someone that actually exists there. 3 to 4 stories. I heard the residents. I heard from my council colleagues that there could be potential litigation. I don't know what the chances of that potential litigation is. I mean, I'm under the premise that we could all be sued, right? I could walk out the building and someone could decide they want to sue me. And it does happen. I've heard of a resident in town that said something to another resident and their feelings are hurt and they're like going to court over it, because feelings are hurt. So I guess, right, anything you could be sued for. But I would say that I think they needed like 30 days to do this study. And I would recommend if we don't hear back in 30 days, then I'm going to propose that we just change this. Scrap whatever's there, like my council colleague said, whatever we had, scrap it, let's do it. I think 30 days is fair enough for somebody to get someone in to do a study or whatever they're thinking about doing. I think it's more than fair, and to come to some conclusion. So let's start the calendar now at the 30-day mark. JIF and legal matters I'm still working on. Language, I received something from our legal firm on language and decorum. I'm going to need to read through that to determine whether that's something maybe I agree with, maybe it agrees with the Constitution, I don't know. Briefly looking at it, it seemed like it didn't actually tie into this body, but I'll read the case law itself just to make sure. But I just got that. The police substation. I think the mayor posted something about the in for 1,000-hour service. Heard something at the county that we blew up the generator or the motor on it. What's going on with it? Is it coming back? Are we going to have people in it when it comes back, or is it going to be like our cars? And Sonia, listen, to be honest with you, I was almost going to go buy a bunch of tulips and plant them around the police cars. If we could maybe get the chief, if maybe the guys could move them around town a little bit, I think that might be a little bit more effective.
So 2 questions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, 2 questions there.
First question, substation. We are looking for a more permanent placement of a substation, so we're working that. So hopefully next couple weeks, you'll see a permanent one that the township is investing in. Second question, you're mobilizing the vehicles, and that's your recommendation or suggestion?
Well, what I'm saying is that everybody I know around town is just laughing, okay, because the cars are parked there continuously and they don't move. Is there a way possible that when two officers leave here, they go, can they move the cars? You know, move them a block, 2 blocks, make them look like somebody's actually in them, because what I've seen here, or what it seems like, is the people that are doing the break-ins, they're not just like driving down the road and they just stop and go, hey, I'm going to break into your house. It looks more like they're casing the area and looking around. So if they're casing it, they're going to notice no one's inside the car, and the car's going to be totally ineffective, gives the public the false sense of hope. So, I mean, it's just my recommendation. I'm not in charge, right? But to me, having the things move so that at least it seems like there's somebody in them might be a good thing.
I certainly think we should bring that up at the Public Safety Committee meeting and up for conversation and debate with some of the, or rather not debate, necessarily conversation about that potential look at.
Okay. Then let's say my final matter for tonight, which is kind of important, I believe. I believe leadership starts at the top, right? And a lot of things start at the top and it trickles down. Okay, and I know I put something in here about my friend Singh and 9/11. So I'll tell you what happened. After 9/11, I was watching TV, and I watched a good friend of mine. He was actually the head of the Sikh temple in Queens at the time, and I seen him on TV talking to President Bush. So I was a little shocked. I didn't know he knew the president, but what I did was I called him, and it was good because his meeting the president was recorded. And I said, why were you meeting the president of the United States? And he said, 9/11 happened, and people in this country see me, and I have a turban, and they think that I'm a terrorist. So I went on TV to explain that, you know, we're wearing a turban and we aren't your enemy or anything like that. And it was a good thing because it kind of quieted down what was happening in this country at this time. People were very upset and they were inflamed, and they went to try and calm the people. And the reason why I say this is it comes from leadership again. You know, if the leader is saying, you know, honk, honk, honk the horn, right? We got an emergency, things are in danger, oh my goodness. Everybody gets worked up about certain things. And then that trickles down, right, to everybody underneath them. And when I looked at, you know, what happened when the mayor made his comments about we're going to deport people, we're going to send them back to Mexico, we're going to blah, blah, blah. You know, coming from someone that was his parents are immigrants, right? It's kind of offensive. My grandparents were immigrants. They came here. But in no way do I think the mayor has the authority to send them back. Let me just state that for the record. I don't think that the mayor has the authority to tell our police officers what they can and cannot do and order them. I believe him being in charge of public safety, his ability is to shape policy. But by him starting with this, I'm going to call it rhetoric, to get himself on TV on a national level, right, alarms our men and our manpower coming all the way down, because their feeling is this is what the mayor is looking for us to do. So I believe that by the actions that he had as the head of public safety, caused a lot of this that happened with the buses, which are people that came here, they immigrated here, and from what everybody read, it was the same thing. New York won't let them in between the hours of after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so the people were looking just to get on the train just to go to New York. But instead, we had to turn that into a political fiasco, of which now people are feeling unwelcome in this country. And, like I said, shoot, my daughter-in-law is an immigrant. So forget about my grandparents, right? My actual daughter-in-law is an immigrant. Maybe my grandchildren will be immigrants. So to make people feel unwelcome just because you happen to be born here in this country is just wrong. It's just wrong. And to come from a mayor, to me, is deplorable. If he'd like to act like that, I tell him, resign from here as mayor, move to Texas, right? You'll be happy in Texas. There's a lot of Democrats moving to Texas, from what I understand from California. The only thing they ask is that they don't destroy Texas like they destroyed their states. But like I said, I'm just I blame the mayor for what happened. I don't blame the officers. I believe the officers were doing their job. They were doing what they felt the mayor wanted them to do. Unfortunately, I think our mayor likes politics and PR more than he does people at times. So that's all I'd like to say on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Moving on to Councilman Coyle.
Thank you, Council President. I'll be brief as I hit my timer as soon as I start. Thank you, Council President. I just wanted first to the administration, I want to set aside time. It could be before the next work session for affordable housing. I know we were looking at a presentation, but I'm happy with a one-to-one with them to talk about affordable housing.
We actually do have our affordable housing person here. So if there are specific questions regarding affordable housing and the council president permits.
I just want to have a deep dive, one-to-one before I.
Okay.
But rather because it can go into a long hour discussion, but I just want to have a separate meeting first and then clarify a few things. But I do thank you for that. Sure. So if it's possible.
It was requested at a
Yes.
couple council meetings to have our affordable housing professional here, so they are here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. The young lady's here, but she can come during the day and we can set up a meeting and that's.
It's a long, arduous 2 hours I would want to sit.
And she has a lot of
Exactly.
information for you.
Have
So
that
anybody
time.
else that wants to come, we can have like a small meeting and go through some of that stuff.
Okay. I'm open, through the administration and Council President, if we could, for the next work session, I can come in at 4:30. If anybody, we'll discuss what council members can. In the sewer department, I'd like to get a meeting with the sewer department, discuss our calendar of improvements that we're doing along with our administrative consent order. And that could be on the following Wednesday as well. I also, I just want to make comments on public safety. I think have done a great job. I'm happy to see the new officers we've hired, and there's so many we've promoted in the past, and the others also that we've hired as well. I'm challenged in what questions I ask the chief, because I don't want people to know our poker hand, what we do and how we strategically put cars around town. I mean, if that's what he wants to do, it's fantastic. I'm certainly not here to tell the public who are looking to be criminals in our neighborhood what we're doing exactly strategically. So it's up to him if he wants to have cars out there moving around for what reason, whether the officer is getting a cup of coffee or the car is sitting idle. I don't have a question. Any car in a residential area in a community is a good thing. It's a deterrent. And it's a great factual, studied opportunity in the community to help out with crime. I hope we continue to do it. I'm happy we're buying more vehicles, but I disagree with my council colleague. I know where he's going with it, and I see he has his points, but I continuously want to see cars around. I think it's great. And if he wants to plant flowers around him, he's more than welcome, but that's an insult. And again, you're giving up the poker hand to the criminal, what we're doing. So that's certainly not my style. And to the administration, to the council president, as far as Amboy Avenue, this 3-4-story, nothing happening, it's not working. For those who have their opinion, could we have a meeting or hire a professional for a full factual study of where we're going on this Amboy Avenue opportunity? Now, we know for 30 years not much has happened, but when I get the complaints or when I do speak to the business community, we have multiple sides to this story. And what I don't hear at this meeting, and I value the time of the 2 or 3 people come here every day, but I never hear from the business community. We never knock on their door to ask them what they want. And when I hear, it doesn't matter what they think, they don't live here. And that's an opinion. I get it. I'm forgiving for that. But you think about that. You don't care what the business people, you don't care about them. They're the ones who make the town vibrant. They're the ones who make that change. That's Mike and Marlene at the coffee house investing their time. If you ask Marla how much she makes per hour, she'll tell you, I wish I never did this. It's so much time to have a store. And when people think about, I want a place store and I want to have a place one day, that's a great dream. It's such a hard job when you come to reality of opening up a business. So, I'm challenged when I hear that. Again, forgiving of it because it's just part of, what someone believes in for their opinion. That's great. But you need business to survive a downtown. You need them to invest. You need them to promote somebody else to make that investment. As Amboy Avenue stands with 8 to 9 stores, you hope to get to 12. As you bounce to 7, you drop to 6. And you have to balance those scales. And I'm open to sit down when this meeting takes place or what professionals are being hired. And I hope the council also weighs in. The instant vote we made to switch from 4 to 3, I understand the position of the council and what they would want. But at least let's weigh the data. Let's talk about a factual study. Let's get factual data. Let's talk about what's causing traffic on Amboy Avenue. In 30 years, we have 28 units on the block. We are a main artery from Perth Amboy to Princeton, with vehicles that come through from all over the state. And the 28 units are causing the traffic. I'm open to sit at any project. Just sit with me in the morning. I will go and volunteer. Anytime you're ready, I will sit in front of a project. Show me what you're upset about. And I just want to know the factual data of the study, what's happening. I'll stand in front of Dr. Osella's building. Show me where that's affecting the traffic on the block. Show me how 8 people are pulling out at the same time. 8 people are leaving at the same time. It's just not a fair assessment. I just ask that we engage to get a factual assessment of what's happening on the block. Because as we kick and pout of what the town should or shouldn't be, we still got to weigh the odds of those who invest. It's just a fair assessment. We've given plenty of people time in the community. The mayor's met with the community 4 times. And you think, well, that's no big deal. Well, the mayor's been busy, and he still took the time to meet with them 4 different times to come up with a plan to do something, to make them be a part of development, there were many discussions that were had, and I think it was a very healthy discussion. But the fact is, and I'll sit with any council member, just let's talk about factual data, because it's a shame that this township doesn't move forward because we get a group who doesn't want change. And I get it. I wanted to be the same town we were here in 1950. It's just not possible how you're going to be that way. But at the same time, no one's going to say that they want to sell their house for the price they paid for it in 1950. No one's upset on what the Indian community has done into North Edison and the only improvements in how they raise the value of prices and how the education system has gone up because of the change in culture. So as we argue one point, there's a repercussion of another. And I just ask that we thoroughly have a healthy debate, healthy discussion for the true facts that are on the table before we hesitate to say, it's just not working. It's just not working. And that's not a fair assessment of the community. It's not a fair assessment when 40 people get together who don't want something. It's not a fair assessment when you don't speak to any of the businesses in the community and don't walk up to them directly and say, what do you think and what do you think you need? And if we were to have a public advocate, one gentleman came to the microphone. Are you saying that it wouldn't be fair to ask those business people what they think of what they want for the neighborhood? So it's only the residents and what they want? And for the business community who live there and own a property there and own multiple properties, they have no way in because they're there. So it's just, I find it odd we don't do a thorough assessment before we pull it, we vote no on something. And that's all I'm asking, because this has been going on for 30 years. I've watched it since 1992. I'm seeing this change in work. I'm seeing this change in families taking on their business for their father. They're not. They're just not picking up their parents' work. They're doing something else today. And entrepreneurship is not what it used to be before. So I just hope we can have a thorough, homework together. And I'm open to sit down. And when I hear Council President from the two residents that come up a lot, I will meet with them anytime. They can call me anytime. And I will walk door to door, do a fair assessment. I'll go to see every business and have a healthy discussion on what's needed for the town. And if it's only 3 stories, fine. I can live with that, and I will support you. But at least do a fair assessment, because what's today is not 100% fair, and it is skewed, and we're not bringing in everybody. And again, if we had that public advocate, you'd have to weigh in the business community. You could just pick and choose and say, well, we're only going to support the residents and invest in what the residents don't want. We shouldn't care about the community. We shouldn't care about the business community who invest money and time and spend hours being in their business to keep it open. So it's just something through the Council President to the BA that we can have some type of investment study, whether it's happening through the Planning Board or through our time. I know we're looking at an economic developer one day, which hasn't been hired yet, but these are a few things I'd like to be discussed. And again, we're here to have a healthy debate. If you don't want to have a healthy debate, it's understood. And as far as the comments before from one person, I'm fine. We're past that. I disagreed with someone, picking on and one of my council colleagues and attacking him, but we're past that. I'm here to help. Let's move on. But I'm going to call it what it is as I see it at the time it's coming. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Moving on to Council Vice President.
Yes, most of the items actually have been addressed. The March 11th work session video to be found on YouTube, the mayor's presentation of the budget on June 13th, so that's been taken care of. The Amboy Avenue repeal, all I can add to this is the concerns, as I hear it from the Clara Barton residents, the main concern is that as this hot potato goes back and forth, and Planning Board, which had missed the 45-day deadline, and this goes back and forth, that at some point, the possibility exists that a developer can come in there, buy the property, and that then it's not going to matter what the Planning Board, what we do with the ordinance, because someone will have beaten that deadline, and will take that property and maybe build 4 stories. So I really would like to see this game of hot potato stop, and if it means that the council takes up this ordinance, I would really like to discuss that further, if we can take up the repeal of this ordinance. And so connected to that, the public advocate referendum update. Councilman Brescher, any news on where we're at in terms of trying to draft a referendum?
For the public advocate, yes. I need to send out an email to everybody that was part of it to determine which one we would like to put up. We had a couple different scenarios, but I'll send out an email. You're right. I didn't send it out. I was supposed to have sent that out to everybody last week. My recommendation would be to go with the Oradell one, but I'll put that in writing for everyone, only because that looks like that was something that was in play. It was checked, as opposed to the one that we did that
I would just, if I may, Council President, that if there's an ordinance, that you also work with our attorney. Obviously, we want to make sure there's proper checks and balances and that you're protected in that sense. So if you could just circulate that to our township attorney, whether it's Mr. Burns or Mr. Raynone, so that you can work alongside one another, and that we have a proper narrative to what it is you're trying to accomplish.
That's actually what we were doing. We went to,
Perfect.
I went to Lou and I asked him about drawing this up, and he asked which one would you actually like to do, which then prompted maybe we can change it to the Ordell one. But I'll send out an email to everybody and then do a follow-up. If everybody can just email me back on it, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. And I think that the issue with cars parking on Cabot and Amboy, apparently that's been addressed as well. So that would be it for me.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Moving on to Councilman Patel.
Thank you, Council President. I will just, quickly run because most of those are covered by my council colleagues. The first one, resident safety topics. Sonia, again, I keep mentioning about these intersections. Calvert Grove, my council colleague did, mention that the challenge there is, this intersection is in the close proximity of school. So it's going to be a little difficult of, shutting down or one way or the other. So the best thing is to put there, traffic measures, maybe, the flashing light or any of those. The one intersection, I brought this up multiple times, Amboy Avenue and Rahaway Road. I mentioned that the traffic signal was, I think there was an intent by the county to approve. I don't know where it was lost. I was supposed to get some backup or some background where it stands, and will this council or this administration is willing to put at least the flashing light at that particular location. Again, this is also close proximity to school. It is very close to MLK school. The same thing as your Grove and Calvert, it is close to another school. Master plan update, I heard from my council colleague, it is for voting next month. Flooding remediation, we briefly covered. My request on this particular topic is especially Winding Brook. If you can have DPW go there, I'll be happy to be on site along with the crew to show where the problem is. The entire that neighborhood, the one area is almost eroded. Water is flooding in the backyard of multiple residents, and it is very close cutting to their house. So we need to take this serious consideration about this as well. Kilmer Field status. I was told that we'll have the season, again, no blame to any specific department here. I know, Ray, you works very hard for DPW. Cricket team literally lost the season because we don't have this field ready. I don't know why there was a need to pile up that dirt, 5 feet dirt there. We could have been probably maybe 1.5 feet and would have been fine with flattening. Do we know what we are planning to do there? Or we are planning to shut down the cricket on that particular field? And by the way, this field was used by the youth program, and they're in trouble.
So, Councilman, if you added 1.5 feet of dirt, you could ski off of that field. We, in order to go ahead and try to make that field level, not only level, but expand it into 2 full-sided cricket fields, we had the perfect opportunity where we had all of the dirt. All the trucking was paid for. So the only thing that really didn't cooperate with us is Mother Nature. As you well know, and you and I have kind of discussed back and forth. We've had more rain, I think, this spring than I care to see for a lifetime. The field is graded. The field is leveled. The field has topsoil on it now. And very shortly, we will be putting the seed and fertilizer and the netting down and the stabilization on there. I understand the impact that it has created. However, the net gain, you had a site that was in horrible condition. The cricket pitch was in horrible condition. The end product, and it's always discerning when you take a field out of commission, right? It's bittersweet. For the time that the construction is going on, everybody's mad. When they're now, next year, playing cricket on 2 fields and 2 different teams being able to play cricket there, they'll be very excited. And the cost to us was really minimal.
I understand that, and I agree to disagree with 1.5 feet because I know that field very well. That is already way high in the back. You could have literally leveled it down and leveled this up again. This is a different discussion. I had been with the earlier administration on this particular topic. I was told that this was not a rocket science. In fact, we had reserved $100,000 particularly for this field. I don't know where that money went, but we could have handled this much better way. Again, Mother Nature you can't control. Again, I'm not blaming you specifically, but there was no need to, when you are dumping the soil, we could have leveled at the same time, not waiting for another 6 months, 8 months, and then, hey, we have the Mother Nature problem.
We didn't wait. We didn't wait. We ran soil there from both projects for months. And again, we didn't pay for any of the trucking to run that. And I'm happy to meet you out at the site.
Sure.
We took a ton of grade shots over there. And when we took a look at what it would to do in order to be able to give us both fields in the most cost-effective and efficient way, this is the solution we came up with. I'm happy to meet you out at the site to show you and kind of go into, of course, if Sonia's okay with that, to meet you at the site. I say this as an aside. My guys who are probably watching right now, I even approved Sunday overtime to get it done, of which my guys know I never approve Sunday overtime.
And again, I said that your department always does a great work. There's no question about that.
To go ahead and get it done. So I think at the end product, I think everybody's going to be very happy in Edison with this field.
No, understood. It's just that it's a problem at this point in time. I get it. The whole intent was to get the 2 pitches there. But we could have done much better. That's my complaint there. And I'm happy to meet there and we can go through that. Because as I said, this was very near and dear to my heart. This was used by the youth and now they are displaced and here we have the problem. But I told them, have patience, you will have it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I respectfully disagree with you on one of the things that you said, but that's okay. The net of is the field is, like I said, we're at a point now that we're at grade, we're topsoiling it, we're seeding it. And again, anytime you want to go out there and take a look at it, I'm more than happy. What happened as far as funding or things of that nature, certainly way before my time.
Yes.
What happens,
I apologize. There's a lot of chatter in the background. And just to be respectful to Councilman Patil and our DPW director, if we could just...
Yeah, if you actually, does anybody have any questions for any of the departments? If not, we can let them go so that way they don't have to stay back. You guys are more than welcome to leave if you guys want to. Sorry for holding you up.
I have a question to Mr. Bignell, though. Rest of them I don't have, but I do have. But thank you, I appreciate it. I'm good.
Just finishing that thought, what has happened in Edison, at least from what I've seen in my tenure here, is that a lot of people have promised to fix things. They promised to fix this building. They promised to fix the cricket fields. They promised to fix the tennis courts, and it's never gotten done. We go ahead and we've spent a significant amount of money fixing all of these things that have never been fixed. So yes, I agree with you. There was a lot of talk. There was no action. The flip side is we're getting it done.
Understood. Again, but we can talk that offline. I don't want to debate at this forum. Funding for various youth programs. Last year, we debated on this council dais. The folks come to the podium. I think this year more youth programs might be applying. I don't know we increase any amount in the budget or we are going to recalculate the formula established. I have no idea. If you can give me the update on that.
We are working on the recalculation. So that's current. I don't know if Mr. Brusher got back in touch with Mr. DeRoberts about it, but that we are currently working on it.
Yes, they contacted me. I gave them the parameters that we set up in the past. Roughly, they asked my feelings about creating additional funding. I agreed. I don't disagree. As long as it's delegated out fairly and equally, and there's some sort of formula so that could always be checked. So they're actually working on that currently. And that was probably about a week ago.
Understood, Councilman. My only concern is if there are more youth programs applying for the funding. If you are just doing the calculation based on what we know, then we'll be back to same situation that we were debating last year. Especially for Mallakam, we said, hey, we don't know, you came late, we'll do it next year. If that program is left out, we'll have a challenge. I don't know if any more youth programs have applied for the funding, they will be left alone. So we need to make sure that we do the funding formula, but at the same time, reserve some money for unknown youth program they might be seeking for funding this year. That's my ask. Thank you. Thank you for that. Next one is Clara Barton residents email, and I was referring to Sue's email. It was nicely drafted. The entire council received it. Just need a clarification. Again, I was not part of the meeting. Councilman Coyle was part of the meeting. I believe Councilman Poiner, you might be. What is the net? I hear that the residents are frustrated, and I will respond to my council colleagues, the semantic on the businesses, etc. But did anyone respond to that email? What's the fact here? The mayor had a meeting with the residents. What is the outcome? What happened there? Do we know?
You're referring to a meeting that the mayor was part of? I was not at that meeting, so I would ask you to contact the mayor to get the extent of the details of that meeting.
Okay, you work for mayor, so I would expect you to follow up with the mayor and get that information. So this is an email I'll be happy to forward tonight. If you can find the extract, what is the outcome of the meeting, I'm happy to do that. On the same topic, let me counter what my council colleague said. I don't know where he is. Last 8 years, we're looking at the Clara Barton. I don't think anyone is saying about the business, shutting down the business or anything. Still the ground floor is going to be the small businesses. So we are welcoming the small businesses. There is no question about the discouraging the businesses. If they want to come to the podium and speak, happy to do that. But they cannot come here and say, I need 10-story building. That's not going to happen. So what my ask is, Councilman Coyle, if you are part of the Chamber of Commerce, if you can go around and ask what the business community is asking for and provide that feedback to this council, and we'll be happy to consider that. But going back to the math, I don't think, if I bought the property hoping that my property will be a $2 million, and that's why, I'm adamant that I don't want this to accept the change. That's ridiculous to me. Let's hear the residents. Let's hear that, what they are expecting. 8 years ago, there was a decision to put that neighborhood in redevelopment. There was a reason for that. The expectation was that neighborhood will flourish, will have more businesses. It will be kind of a mini downtown for Edison. Didn't happen in 8 years. We're at the peak of the real estate market. If you look at 15 years ago, the single family house, a brand new house, in North Edison was costing $800,000. Today, it is $1.6 to $2 million. I'm talking about residential. What happened to Clara Barton neighborhood? Is really, if the market is really good for the commercial, that could have been gone up significantly higher. Would have probably, the entire Clara Barton, entire Amboy Avenue would have been flooded with 4-story buildings. And I don't think residents would have been here asking to reduce it to 3-story. Didn't happen. There is a reason, there is a rationale for that. The business, it's not again about the business. It's about, if you're talking about the real estate business in terms of getting more units and making the profit out of it, it is not a small business. It is a developer and redeveloper's business you're talking about, which I don't think is a good idea to, encourage them and have the entire Amboy Avenue flooded with too many residents. That's not a good idea. If you're talking about the business, let's talk about the small business. And I'm happy to visit again the Amboy Avenue, go to every single shop or the business and ask them what you expect. And I'm pretty sure they will say they care about their business. They don't care about what 2-story, 3-story, 4-story. That's the thing. Let's be realistic here. Let's be realistic. Listen to the neighbors of Clara Barton and act. And this is what I keep saying. This body has a responsibility to make those laws adjustment. We did that 8 years ago. Let's repeal that. Let's put that back and let's see what happens. Maybe we may not even get the 3-story building. Maybe another after 4 years, president might come back and say, lower it to 2-story. We should be open to accept those ideas and see probably where we land up. And that's where, my question was to administration, that what was the outcome of that, mayors, I know mayor heard the residents, and I know that mayor wanted to do the right thing, what Clara Barton residents were asking, but I don't think I have the answer tonight, but I'll re-forward that email to you. Next one is the council meeting broadcast schedule. Again, there were numerous complaints. Even our former mayor, Tony Risigliano, also sent an email saying, hey, why, unless it is fixed, I'm happy.
It is fixed. The timing was adjusted.
Perfect, thank you. Comcast, road opening and lawn destruction issue. Entire North Edison, I don't know, do they have the road opening permit? Not the road opening, but lawn opening permit. I don't know if that law exists, but they are going to the private lawn, digging 4 feet down, laying down the cables and just putting the topsoil. Do we know what's happening there?
They're guided under the BPU, and I'll just refer to legal regarding any right-of-way work.
Without knowing the specifics, it's a little bit difficult to speak to it, but in general, if they've got lines underneath a private residence lawn, there's usually an access easement or an easement allowing them to access, do whatever repairs they need to do, because they need to maintain a continuity of service. Usually, they're supposed to return it to whatever condition it was in, which I've seen that where they just throw some seed down. I've seen that where they just leave it dug up and let it grow in naturally and leave it to the homeowner. I've seen it where they throw down a piece of sod, depending on the size of the work area. So what that actual extent of is going to vary depending on the terms of the easement that they've got and the right of access that they've got. But that ends up being an issue not between the township and Comcast. It ends up being an issue between the homeowner and Comcast if they're on a private residence.
And Councilman Pato, anecdotally, this happened on my street. The more people complain, and the person that complains the most gets the better service. So just ask everyone to complain, and they should get the clear service.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. My only concern here is there are hundreds and hundreds of residents who are impacted, and every single person calling that is not really a good way. We should have some sort of a liaison through the township saying, if you call me, I'll make sure that the Comcast fixes your problem. I'm not saying township will fix it, but at least there should be some service from the township.
I think legally speaking, they have the right of way to do it. I think we passed that ordinance to essentially get more service. So I think it's hard for us to take up that charge. But I do believe, if it's because on my street, only like 3 people's lawn were impacted. So it's hard to complain for everybody when very limited people were impacted. So in that case, it's better to just do it individually.
Council President, there were some emails concerned a specific location, so that we do have we have a contact at Comcast. Obviously, it's an internal. We don't share that, and we did pass that concern over.
Perfect. If anything is there, then I'll pass on your.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you. The next one is the legal lawsuit. Again, this is something we agreed that we'll have some closed door meetings. Do we know the schedule when it's going to happen?
I believe I left it up to the council because I don't know what court cases are going on. So if there's something that comes up, he will, set something up. I don't know.
No, this is regarding anything that was settled but not known to the council through GIF or through any other mechanism, because we get to hear from social media, which is not a great thing. If we get briefed.
I think mainly it's the GIF that will be bypassing us, right?
There's not a bypass. That is the practice, the policy of the GIF and what they do for cases. Someone Oprah'd a case and posted on Facebook. We can't stop that. However, in that case particularly, it's personnel related. We can't discuss it. But rather than having a open-ended case list for you, are you looking for a 2-year, a 1-year, a what? Could you give me a more specific timeline as to what cases you're looking for that were settled by the GIF that necessarily didn't make it to this body? Because that would be helpful, and certainly then we could set up a closed session.
Absolutely. I don't think we received any legal briefing about in last 2 years the cases were settled to this body, and that's what my ask was. Again, not necessary to discuss here.
We can take it offline. Yeah.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Hank. Very generic questions, that's the last one. About, again, coming back to Clara Barton. I would say, Clara Barton is one of the oldest section of Edison Township. where we have various businesses, homes, which might have grandfathered usage. If a business or let me put it this way, if the property owner choose to enhance his property through redevelopment or through development, will that person seize any grandfathered benefits?
Probably, yeah.
No, probably is like subjective answer.
Because it has to be discussed with the planning board. So I know you're going with the backing out parking on the cabin, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
The issue of parking has always been an issue. As long as I've been around for like 20, 25 years, it's always been a problem up there. And then when the county came in and put in all the pavers, they punched out the pavers and they took away parking spaces. And if you go back to the original ordinance, the commercial property, they could count like spaces in the street as part of their parking requirement. But then the place had dormant. So then what happened was, that was the AAR zone. Then what happened under the last administration, Susan Gruhl, who was the planning consultant that did the need of redevelopment, in this case was rehabilitation, she came in and she created both plans. So the redevelopment plan for the rehabilitation area included things like stacked parking, and it went to 4 stories, but with a setback on the building. If you're talking about the Dr. Rosello property, that whole corner was part of the original approval. And I don't think Dr. Rosello at the time, with the financing like that, he had his issues. So when they did the approval for the 4-story building, they also did a subdivision so he could keep his doctor's office there. It's my understanding that the parking along Cabot that backs out has been there 60, 70 years. So I don't know from a police matter whether that's grandfathered or not, but he does have the right to do it because it's been over time. I'm not sure it's a planning issue when it's in the public right-of-way. So that's something that legal would have to just, tell me one way or the other whether the police can enforce that or not. If a new application comes, they certainly can add new conditions and make changes and say, look, you can't have that parking, or it has to be over here, or it has to be arranged a different way. So you're correct in that assumption.
Okay.
But the problem is, like, I don't like to discuss some of these things when there's things pending. As there is a legal case going now, it's been appealed, that decision, and they also have already filed for the 4-story. So they're protecting themselves with the ordinances and the like.
Okay.
All right.
So in terms of the not that particular specific case, but I kind of asked some of the questions during the bond discussion. If someone has a grandfather, say, they didn't put the sidewalk, and township has a right of way, that we were just talking about the Comcast, right? There's a right of way.
Well, with the land use, the attorney can correct me because I'm not an attorney, I'm a planner. But, we always learned that it was what they call the bundle of rights with your property. And the bundle of rights could be an easement that you just talked about. You gave away an easement, so you lost a piece of the bundle. Parking, things of that nature were part of the bundle. And then things that were grandfathered, so it was before the ordinances and stuff, they had the right to use it because it was before the ordinances and you couldn't really take it away from them. This goes back so far, I don't know how we would find out whether or not the council granted them an easement to back into the right-of-way way back when it was just a dirt road. So it's very difficult for us to come up with that.
No, but the burden is on the owner, not on the township. Burden is on the owner to prove that he had grandfathered usage.
Again, you're talking legal stuff now, not planning stuff.
No, I understand.
And right away. And the other thing too is the planning board, it really has no jurisdiction in the right of way. That's all yours.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is where, I have not seen any application coming to this council dais about approving the waiver for the sidewalk, and that is exactly where I was going. If tomorrow this council approves this bond and township wants to go and put these sidewalks all across the Amboy Avenue.
Like I said, that's a legal question. I don't know if he has rights. You'll probably wind up in court. We're in court with one of those already with the gates on a road that was supposed to be vacated but wasn't vacated, and there's things going on already with those types of issues. So I really can't answer that question.
So my question is, what measures your office will or the administration will take into consideration to enforce based on what is happening, 3-story, 4-story, sidewalks, anything, proactive measures so
Okay.
that we don't get
We
sued.
don't, the zoning, planning, we don't enforce the right-of-way inside the right-of-way. That's a police issue. That's not a zoning issue. So if they're parking illegally on the street or whatever, that's not something that we enforce. We enforce the zoning on the property, but not in the right-of-way.
So what happens if I start building without a permission on the right way?
Well, if you start building in the right-of-way, that's a police matter. If you start building on your property without a permit, that's a zoning matter. That's how we've always approached it.
It's a right-of-way property is also owned by, technically is owned by the property owner, even though he has, he has given a right-of-way to the township or whatever the BP or whoever it is. And that's where the question is, where it falls in. Does it falls into land use planning zoning, or it falls into?
Going forward, the planning board can say, we don't want you backing into the right-of-way. It's a very bad design. Okay, and that's not something that I always, for the last years that I've done this stuff in other places, I always kind of like cringe when I see backing in the right-of-way and always try to make them change it. As far as this property, because it's been so long.
Point of order, point of clarification, and I'm asking this for legal. I apologize to interrupt. He stated that there may be a pending application before the board that is purview to that. I am on the planning board. Does this potentially put me at conflict?
No.
You should not. These are generic questions.
I just
You're
wanna make
okay. There's a potential application before the board.
Okay, I just wanna make
That's
sure
fine.
because-
You have the right to hear any of that. Do you mind if I step in just for a second, Mr. Patel?
Sure.
Mr. Bignell has it fairly accurate when he describes the property rights as essentially having a bundle of rights. And he can't really answer you as to whether or not this property owner has grandfathered rights, other than to say that they probably do. If the township were to challenge those rights, hypothetically, in any scenario where we challenge someone's rights and try to take those rights away from a property owner, whether it's through eminent domain, whether it's through enforcement of the right-of-way, whether it's through saying you have to build something here that's not otherwise in existence on your property because of changing zoning laws. You're technically correct in that the burden is on the homeowner to show that they are grandfathered in, but what it's not a difficult burden for them to meet, though. Okay, so I think that's something that you have to keep in mind. So if we said with any particular piece of property, we want to do something on this part of it, and he says, no, you can't do that, I have this document from 48 years ago, that's all he needs to do, right? Or here, look at the land records here, I pulled this from the county records saying that I had this in place and we don't have anything else. Then it becomes a much steeper climb, a much more uphill battle for the township to rebut that presumption. Because once they make that claim, it then shifts back to the township to have that burden to show that someone is to be denied their rights. And the theory behind that is obviously we want property owners, as a state and as a country, property owners have certain rights, and those rights are protected strongly. You know, for the state to act and for the state to impose or infringe upon those, it's difficult, and it should be. You know, the state shouldn't be able to just come in and say, you know, we're going to do this, and you can't say anything about it. You're done. There's none of that without just compensation. There's none of that without the right to a hearing, to due process. All of those things apply. So rather than speak about a specific property or speak about a specific property owner, which could get us into
No, I don't want to
sorts
be
of
a specific
issues.
case. That's why I said generic.
When we talk about in general, if there is the right attached to the property to park within the right-of-way somewhere along the line, that right is going to remain grandfathered in until we do something about it. And that might include something such as simply trying to enforce existing zoning when a new application comes through. It might involve saying, you know what,
this is not how we want this developed, and having to take action to acquire and improve the property or acquire additional rights to a property so that we can make those improvements. But anything that they already have in their possession and any rights that they already have entitled to, if we're gonna take those away at some point, if the township seeks to take a property owner's rights, just compensation has to be paid, and the process has to be followed.
Understood, understood. Again, not debating on that. The reason is because the township long enough, we did not enforce our own rules, and people have taken the advantage, claiming that it is grandfathered, which is the problem.
Well, I guess one of the questions would be, can you do a title search? Would that help if they got into that process? And do those new rules apply if he was doing it prior to the ordinances being put in place?
Yeah, but rather
Those are legal
than
questions.
speculate about all the things that we can do right now, I'm going to suggest at this point that we take this offline so that we can discuss any particulars that you want someone to look into, whether it's from Hank's office or my
Correct, correct.
office, and then we can actually sit down with it and go, what does this stuff mean? And, we were talking about things that could exist 60 years back in the county records, which may or may not be easily accessible.
No, where I'm heading is if we are planning to repeal the ordinance, I would put the specific language that will give township right away to have the sidewalk all along Amboy Avenue. Because this will be a perfect opportunity for us to clean the mess. Like, it's all over, right? Someone has a grandfather, someone doesn't have it, someone has a sidewalk, someone doesn't have the sidewalk, someone is using for parking. If we are really doing the justice to that neighborhood, this is the high time we should look in complete detail saying what best can be done, so that whether it's an eminent dominant, whether it is, looking at the grandfather properties or any of those, that would help to, establish that zone.
Well, if they're in the right of way, then you don't need eminent domain. You already own the property. Now it's just a question of like it needs by implication or all of the legal stuff that we'll go to court with probably.
Yeah, because I will be looking specific language into that ordinance if you're planning to repeal that redevelopment. That's where I was coming. But I will send a separate communication, what we can get and what we cannot get into that. But thank you, Hank.
Okay, sir.
Is that it, Councilman? Okay. Well, the last one up would be Council President, and there he is. Okay.
All right. As for me, let's start with the bottom. Economic developer. Sonia, how far are we?
Interview process, I will tell you, we have been finding it challenging with regard to the scope of the job description and aligning it with the needs of what we're looking to accomplish with an economic developer, and as well as having somebody that is qualified. We are looking at some background into, does this position or person have a fulsome planning background? So right now we're in the interview process. We have just some of those concerns about it, and so we're just going through the motions of that.
If you don't mind, can you send me the criteria that we're looking for?
I can send you the job
Perfect.
the job description posting if you want.
Perfect. And moving on to the Papiani Park Power Line Bike Route. I know there was some update, so if you don't mind sharing with us.
Yes, I actually had a pretty lengthy conversation with the representative from JCP&L. Their legal team is still reviewing it, which is fine. We had some discussion items to actually go over with respect to that. Where we're at right now is actually, and I had sent, I believe, you and the business administrator an email about this last week, is if we want to move more quickly once it's ready for signatures. At this point, they're ready to start reviewing simultaneously with the legal documents any kind of plans that we've put together, or if we haven't put together any plans, we can start that process so that we can submit so that they know what we're looking to do on the property itself. They can review that as well, make sure that there's no environmental concerns, start that whole process going.
That sounds perfect. So can we?
I think we do have some preliminary plans, so I'll work with Brian on getting that to you.
Perfect.
The bike
So
path. Yeah.
I'll ask for the update on next meeting on that. Now, on the last thing is the bike connection project, the plan the big plan that we had at the last meeting I was here, that when Mayor June Choi was here, they essentially developed that whole plan. Engineering was done. what are the next steps? What can we do to get that from paper to real life?
Are you talking, so you'd have to bring me up to speed in terms of what the plan that you're referring to. Is there an actual developed plan?
Yeah, there is
written
an
plan?
actual developed plan. I think Madam Clerk they scanned that big, I think I brought it, I left it out here for public, and then I think I talked to you about it, but we emailed it, I'll have Clerk
Okay.
email you again, but that is something
Question. What is your question with regard to the process?
So now that we have that, and I'm sure we'll have to update it a bit because it was 2018, 2017, what can we use and how can we get that built out going forward? I know open space is very interested, and I think that we have support on the council. If it's something that we need to do through ordinance or funding, I am not sure. But if we can get the next steps to how to make that a reality.
Okay, it will take some time because if you're looking at an old report, we'll have to reassess
Okay.
some of the actual things that we're able to get into. Obviously, if there are right-of-way issues or similar issues that we're dealing with JCP&L, I mean, it took us nearly maybe 6-8 months to get that.
That's
So,
fine. I'm okay with baby steps. You tell me, where we can end up at the next meeting, and we'll go from there.
Sure, I'll circulate it with our engineering team.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. And now, motion to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Councilman Patil, second by Council Vice President. The meeting has ended at 9:41. Done.
All right.